Pokémon, the strongest trainer. Greetings, fellow multiversal adventurers. It's an honor to have you back in this saga that has us all hooked. Official channel statement: this story is 100% epic fiction, so please don't attempt real magic. The results aren't guaranteed and insurance won't cover it. The rights to this masterpiece belong entirely to its brilliant original author. We are just a barge sharing it with you. Do you want to keep being part of this amazing community? Join our ninja army of subscribers on YouTube and give this content a like. And for true fans, our Patreon has exclusive ninjutsu waiting for you. Chapter 399. A skilled hunter often appears as prey. Inside the police station office, Sharona and the handsome man remained silent for a long time. Lu Feng's gaze remained fixed on them, observing their expressions. After several minutes, the handsome man gradually regained his composure. He looked at Lu Feng with a complex expression and asked, "Aren't Dialga and Palkia truly legendary gods? Even if Team Galactic can control the three lake gods, they shouldn't be able to control Dialga and Palkia. How dare they covet the power of time and space?" As a distinguished member of Interpol, the handsome man was well aware of the power of legendary Pokémon like Dialga and Palkia. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say they could easily destroy an entire region. He had recently witnessed a might of the Unova region's legendary dragon gods, Kyurem, Reshiram, and Zekrom, and knew that these powerful legendary gods were simply beyond human control. Unless a trainer gained their approval and voluntarily followed and mentored them, controlling them was difficult. Haven't you seen that the scorched towers of Yuzu City in the Johto region are a warning left behind by ancient people who coveted the power of the gods? So the handsome guy couldn't understand what the Jenga team's confidence was? Why did they set their sights on Dialga and Palkia? You have to know that Dialga and Palkia, who are in charge of time and space, are more powerful and extraordinary than Hoolugia in some aspects. When Lu Feng heard the handsome guy's doubts, he didn't speak immediately. Instead, he shifted his gaze to Sharona and said in a low voice, "Mr. Handsome, I think Zealand can tell you the answer to this question." The handsome guy was stunned for a moment, then turned to look at Sharona. Sharona glanced at Lu Feng in surprise, then pondered for a few moments before nodding to the two of them and saying, "Based on what I've learned, and the information revealed in the ancient murals left in Shen Town, the three lake gods do have a connection to Dialga and Palkia. They are all Pokémon created by Arceus, the god of creation. According to ancient Sinnoh mythology, after fending off the asteroid crisis, Arceus saw the loneliness of the Pokémon world and separated three powers from his body. Dialga was born from the power of time and controls the maintenance and navigation of the Pokémon world's temporal dimension. Palkia emerged from the power of space and is responsible for repairing and stabilizing the Pokémon world's spatial dimension. As for Giratina, representing Arceus's shadow, he possesses the power to reverse the world and ensures its safety by protecting its stability. However, Arceus considered Dialga and Palkia too powerful and feared that they would misuse the power of time and space without authorization, causing serious damage to the Pokémon world. So just before falling asleep, he once again created the god of emotion, Emrito, the god of wisdom, Uxie, and the god of will, Akino, and used their power to check and balance Dialga and Palkia. The handsome guy fell silent when he heard what Sharona said, and his brows couldn't help but frown. So the Galactic team captured the three lake gods in order to use the power given by Arceus to control Dialga and Palkia. Sharona nodded with a complicated expression, her mood full of solemnity and melancholy. "This is a bit troublesome." The handsome guy leaned back in the chair with a sad face, and couldn't help rubbing his temples with his hands. "At present, we don't know the specific location of the Galactic team's headquarters, and there is no time to stop the Galactic team's evil plan." When Sharona heard what the handsome guy said, a tangled expression appeared on her face, and she was a little hesitant, but after thinking about it carefully, she finally did not speak. Although the Sinnoh League's covert investigations had given them a rough idea of Team Galactic's headquarters, they still hadn't fully investigated the identity of their leader, making them hesitant to act. For such evil organizations, if the mastermind behind them wasn't apprehended, even if some of their members were apprehended, they would likely regenerate like weeds by the roadside. Team Rocket is a prime example. In Pokémon Origins, Sakaki disbanded Team Rocket under pressure from Red, but because he wasn't apprehended by the League, he later revived Team Rocket with his own initiative. This was the reason the Sinnoh League had been hesitant to act for so long. After all, it was better to retain knowledge of an evil organization than to confront an unknown new one. Lu Feng looked at the silent Sharona, initially stunned, But after a moment's reflection, he gradually understood the Sinnoh League's concerns. He didn't believe that Team Galactic, having been established in the Sinnoh region for so long, would remain completely unaware of and on guard against them. There was a moment of silence. Lu Feng glanced at Sharona and the handsome man, and whispered, "Actually, we don't necessarily need to find Team Galaxy's headquarters, we can also eradicate them completely." Sharona and the handsome man looked puzzled and bewildered upon hearing this. Mr. Lu Feng, what do you mean? There's a saying in my hometown that a skilled hunter often appears as prey. Seeing Sharona's thoughtful expression, Lu Feng smiled faintly, his eyes flickering slightly. The handsome man chewed on the words carefully, as if he understood something, but also as if he didn't understand anything, so he had to continue asking Lu Feng for help. Mr. Lu Feng, could you please elaborate on your plan? Lu Feng nodded, pursed his chapped lips, and continued, if Team Galaxy wants to control Dialga and Pokia, they'll need some kind of item to summon them from their respective dimensions, and based on my knowledge of Sinnoh lore, the only items capable of accomplishing this are Dialga's Diamond Orb, Pokia's White Jade Orb, and Arceus's Spear Key. I believe Team Galaxy has been planning this for so long, they must have known the summoning method and are now searching for these three items. The Diamond Orb is in the Path City Museum, and the White Jade Orb is in Shen Town. A flicker of surprise flashed in Sharona's beautiful eyes. She smoothed her hair with her hand and said softly, in other words, as long as we prepare in advance, we can definitely capture Team Galaxy. The handsome man nodded excitedly, believing Sharona's idea to be feasible. Just then, before the handsome man could even begin to rejoice, Sharona's phone rang. Looking at the note on her phone, she knew it was her grandmother, Dr. Mustard Orchid, calling. For some reason, Sharona suddenly developed a foreboding feeling. Sure enough, as soon as she answered the call and learned the purpose of Dr. Mustard Orchid's call, her face suddenly turned livid, a hint of anger etched across her beautiful features. She had never imagined that just as she had discovered Team Galaxy's plot, before they could act, the Mustard Orchid Research Institute in Shen Town and the Pathé City Museum were attacked. The Galaxy took advantage of the chaos to steal the Diamond and White Jade Orbs, effectively ruining their newly devised plan before it could even be implemented. This silenced Sharona, and even the handsome man, noticing her expression, felt a surge of unease. When Sharona shared the news, the handsome man's face was immediately filled with disappointment, and he slumped down in his chair, as if he had lost all strength. Lu Feng, this plan won't work. Sharona clenched her fists, her voice growing muffled. Lu Feng shook his head, sighed and said, actually, that's not what I meant. I just wanted to talk about a sting operation. We can go directly to the place where Team Galactic summoned Dialga and Pokia and wait for them. Wouldn't it be better to wait for them at the destination? I believe Team Galactic has been planning for so long, and the plan is about to succeed. At such an important moment, the leader behind Team Galactic will definitely show up. When Sharona and the handsome guy heard this, they were stunned for a while, and then their eyes seemed to brighten up a lot. Chapter 400, The Third Champion Pokémon. Mr. Lu Feng, do you know where Team Galactic will summon Dialga and Pokia? The handsome man asked excitedly, his eyes gleaming. Lu Feng nodded, glancing at the map, a smile playing at the corner of his mouth. I do have some guesses. You should be familiar with this place. Following Lu Feng's gaze, Sharona spotted the map on the office wall and a thoughtful expression crossed her face. After a few seconds of contemplation, a flash of inspiration seemed to strike, and a glint shone in her eyes. Is this Mount Chang'an? Sharona hesitated, still uncertain, even though she felt it was a strong possibility. The handsome man frowned, recalling the legends surrounding Mount Chang'an, and then his expression gradually relaxed. For the Sinnoh region, Mount Chang'an, a mountain range that existed since its inception, lies at its very center, and is steeped in countless myths. It's hard to argue that it has no connection to Arceus. Mount Chang'an is very likely the birthplace of Dialga and Pokia. Upon contemplating this possibility, the handsome man looked at Lu Feng with shock, his eyes filled with admiration. He hadn't expected Lu Feng to be able to analyze Team Galactic's destination so quickly, which filled him with admiration, and he even considered recruiting Lu Feng into Interpol. Hearing Sharona's words, Lu Feng nodded with tenderness in his eyes. It's indeed Mount Chang'an. According to information I've learned, there's the Pillar of Spear at the summit of Mount Chang'an, the birthplace of Dialga and Pokia, so, the Pillar of Spear should be the easiest place to summon them. Sharona couldn't help but look at Lu Feng deeply. She had studied the myths and legends of the Sinnoh region for so long, yet she hadn't known of the Pillar of Spear existing atop Mount Xiangun. The fact that Lu Feng could so easily bring it up made Sharona wonder. But now wasn't the best time to ask, so she remained silent. The handsome man turned and looked at the map on the wall, his eyes falling on the top of Xiangun Mountain. His breathing gradually became a little rapid, and he couldn't help but say to Lu Feng and Sharona, "Champion Sharona, Mr. Lu Feng, now that we know Team Galaxy's next plan, why don't we start now?" To prevent Team Galaxy from summoning Dialga and Palkia prematurely and causing damage to the Sinnoh region, Lu Feng and Sharona nodded, their expressions much better. They were about to set off for Xiangun Mountain, but Lu Feng seemed to remember something and slowly stopped. The handsome man and Sharona looked at him in confusion, their faces full of bewilderment and confusion, thinking that there had been some omission or mistake. Mr. Lu Feng, what's wrong with you? Is there something wrong? Or have you thought of something? Lu Feng nodded, then shook his head, and then looked at the two of them solemnly, and reminded in a magnetic voice, "I think this operation requires the cooperation of the police station. Not only do we need to stop Team Galaxy at Xiangun Mountain, but we also need to attack Team Galaxy's headquarters at the same time, and dismantle Team Galaxy, the cancer of the Sinnoh region, once and for all." Sharona and the handsome guy were stunned for a moment, thinking about his words silently. The handsome guy frowned and said, "But we don't know the specific location of Team Galaxy's base. We should still focus on Xiangun Mountain at the moment." No. In fact, the Alliance already knew the location of Team Galaxy's headquarters, but because the identity of the leader behind the scenes was not exposed, they were worried about alerting them in advance, so they didn't act immediately. Sharona shook her head and said in a deep voice, "Although we have many speculations about the identity of the mastermind behind Team Galactic, we have no other evidence, so we haven't been able to eliminate Team Galactic until now." The handsome man sighed. As a member of Interpol, he also understood the difficulties faced by Sharona and the Sinnoh Alliance. After all, the Alliance is a formal official organization. After all, they have to seize the stolen goods. They can't be as unscrupulous as evil organizations, nor can they ignore the facts like some science and engineering schools. As long as they have clear evidence, the Alliance will strike with lightning speed. Lu Feng listened to Sharona's words, his lips curled up slightly, and he said meaningfully, "As an evil organization rooted in the Sinnoh region, all of Team Galactic's plans are bound to cost a lot of money. I believe you have already noticed this. The leader of Team Rocket in the Kanto region was once the owner of the Viridian Gym. The leader of Team Galactic in the Sinnoh region is likely to use a similar disguise as Team Rocket." Sharona and the handsome man were silent for a while, their faces becoming very complicated. From Lu Feng's hints, they gradually began to understand their thoughts. They sighed and said, "I never thought he was the evil leader who founded Team Galaxy." A moment later, Sharona reacted first and told the handsome man the locations of Team Galaxy headquarters. He instructed him to contact the Junshus in various locations for assistance. Once the Galaxy leader appeared, they could capture all the Galaxy members. The handsome man nodded with a heavy heart, looking at Lu Feng and Sharona. "Champion Sharona, Mr. Lu Feng, time is running out. I'll leave the Xiangun Mountain matter in your hands. I'll notify Miss Junsha and work with Interpol." At the same time, as if hearing the handsome man's request, the system suddenly issued a new task to Lu Feng. Ding. "Congratulations to the host for receiving the legendary quest, Team Jenga's Destruction. Quest time limit, none. Quest description, Interpol's handsome man has learned of Team Jenga's conspiracy and hopes you can thwart it before Dialga and Palkia appear, rescue the captured 3 lake gods, and prevent the destruction of the Sinnoh region. Quest reward: 1 water essence, which directly helps a water-type Pokémon reach its peak near champion level. Failure penalty: decreased favorability with handsome man, decreased favorability with Dialga and Palkia, and Team Jenga's pursuit." After reading the system's prompt, Lu Feng calmed down his expression and said to handsome man seriously, "We won't let Mr. Handsome down. Leave Team Jenga at Xiangun Mountain to us." He then looked directly at Sharona. Seeing the tenderness in her eyes, he couldn't help but smile, and then left the Cutting Edge City police station. They first went to the Cutting Edge Temple, hoping to take away the few Pokémon Lu Feng had left there to learn from. Crossed out. At this time, under the direction of the Guardians, the Shroud Shrine had begun clearing the surrounding debris, preparing to rebuild the temple for Regigigas to rest. When Lu Feng found several of his Pokémon, he couldn't help but smile with surprise. With Regigigas' guidance and the help of the ground-type element energy core, Garchomp, stuck at the peak of its near-champion status, finally broke through to the champion level, becoming Lu Feng's third champion Pokémon after Gardevoir and Deoxys. The other Pokémon also saw slight improvements in strength. While not significant, Lu Feng felt a sense of satisfaction. Furthermore, Regigigas informed Lu Feng that using the ground-type element energy core to create a new legendary giant would require considerable time to incubate, so he couldn't currently take the newly born legendary pillar. Lu Feng sighed, took out some homemade energy cubes, and handed them to Regigigas. He then used his superpower to mark him, making it easier for him to summon him next time. After doing these things, he left with Sirona and headed directly towards Xiangu Mountain. Chapter 401, Ancient Hour. The Spear Pillar opens. December 31st, Tuesday. After a day of traveling, Lu Feng and Sirona finally arrived at Route 216, the northern entrance to Mount Xiangun. Mount Xiangun, the tallest mountain in the Sinar region, runs through the region, dividing it into east and west, much like Mount Silver divides Kanto City. However, unlike Mount Silver, Mount Xiangun's interior stretches into a vast labyrinth, filled with ancient murals depicting legends and the remains of the Spear Pillar, the remains of Arceus' creation of the three dragons of Sinnoh. The entire mountain is perpetually snowy, with thick deposits of snow piling up on its summit. The northern city of Chifan, affected by the snowfall from Mount Xiangun's peak, is completely covered in snow, maintaining extremely low temperatures year-round. This demonstrates the depth of Mount Xiangun's snow. Sirona looked up at the summit of Mount Xiangun, the highest mountain in Sinnoh, and couldn't help but mutter to herself, "I hope we're still in time." Then, the two exchanged glances before walking together toward the entrance to Xiangu Mountain, where Route 216 connects to the Xiangu Mountain. They were greeted by a thick mist, which instantly obscured much of the scenery and slightly obscured their vision. Lu Feng's brows furrowed as he gazed at the dense fog before him. After a moment's deliberation, he dispatched his Articuno and whispered, "Blow it away, Chew." Articuno responded with a high-pitched cry, then fluttered its icy blue wings violently, stirring up a powerful gust of cold wind that swept away the obstructing fog. Instantly, the cold wind whistled past, accompanied by a few falling wisps of ice crystals, breaking through the obstruction of the fog and instantly clearing the entire cavern. Articuno's bright red eyes gleamed as the fog began to recede. It flapped its wings faster, increasing the speed of the air within the cave. In a short while, the fog had completely dissipated. Lu Feng nodded in satisfaction. Then, looking at Articuno repairing its feathers with its beak, he said with a faint smile, "Articuno, well done, Chi." Articuno nodded, chirped once more, and was then retrieved into Lu Feng's Pokeball. Looking at the complex network of passages and the crisscrossing caverns before him, Lu Feng couldn't help but feel a headache coming on. He silently glanced at Sirona. Perhaps sensing Lu Feng's gaze, Shirona's brows furrowed, a solemn expression on her face, as if she were at a loss for what to do about the situation. Seeing Shirona's expression, Lu Feng couldn't help but sigh. After a moment's thought, Lu Feng placed his last hope on Rodham. Looking at him with anticipation, he said, "Rodham, use the internet to find a map of the routes within Xiangu Mountain." Rodham saluted Lu Feng, and the screen on his abdomen began to flicker, as if searching for a specific route within Xiangu Mountain. An unknown amount of time passed. Just as Lu Feng and Sirona were about to randomly choose a passage to explore, Rodham finally found all the marked routes within Xiangu Mountain and immediately reported to Lu Feng, "Beep. We've searched 25 routes within Xiangu Mountain, with the current 8 closest routes." Rodham, Lu Feng and Shirona's faces froze upon hearing Rodham's words. They exchanged a look of frustration. "Looks like we'll just have to search one route at a time," Sirona said in a complex tone, a flicker of disappointment and impatience in her eyes. Lu Feng nodded helplessly, his face etched with exhaustion. "This is the only way. Xiangu Mountain is just too vast." Having made their decision, the group chose the nearest passage and entered, having Rodham keep a record to prevent them from getting lost in the vastness of Xiangu Mountain. About 3 hours later, after much trial and error, Lu Feng and Sirona finally found the passage to the summit. During this time, they encountered numerous attacks from wild Pokémon living within Mount Xiangun, but their relentless counterattacks gradually reduced the number of attacking Pokémon. Following Rodham's guidance, the two continued along the interconnected passageways, quickly reaching the mountainside and continuing toward the summit. Elsewhere, on Route 208 in the southern part of Mount Chang'an, Cherry, accompanied by Team Galaxy's 4 members, Hoshi, Jupiter, Xinxing, and Pluto, along with a number of elite members, entered the southern entrance to Mount Chang'an. Since Team Galaxy had already explored much of the southern region and had a map of the route to the summit, they had little trouble. They quickly passed through the first level of caves in the southern area and arrived at a newly excavated cave entrance in the northwest of the second level. The broken wood and stone scattered on the ground suggested that this cave entrance once held ancient murals. Cherry stared deeply at the mural beneath his feet, then glanced at the 3 lake gods his men were carrying. He remained expressionless for a long moment, as if lost in thought and anticipation. Many of Team Galaxy's members, taking advantage of Cherry's pause, entered the passage behind the cave entrance to clear out the wild Pokémon inhabiting the 3rd floor, preventing them from interfering with Team Galaxy's plans. After waiting for about half an hour, the previously noisy passage connecting the 2nd and 3rd floors gradually quieted down, returning to a state of silence. A Team Galaxy member emerged from the passage, bowing respectfully, his face awash with enthusiasm. "Boss Cherry, the wild Pokémon on the 3rd floor have been cleared. You may proceed." Cherry nodded indifferently, his voice devoid of emotion. "Let's go." With his voice, Team Galaxy quickly advanced to the 3rd floor, using the Pokémon's power to cross the waterfall on the 4th floor, and continued straight ahead until they reached the summit of Chang'an Mountain on the 7th floor. Chi-Ri and his companions emerged from the 7th floor, encountering a ruin permeated with an ancient atmosphere. Broken rock pillars, shattered bronze fragments, and a mysterious, tightly closed doorway exuded a unique charm. Chi-Ri stepped forward and traced the marks on the doorway, sensing the traces of the origin era. His calm eyes trembled slightly. He was silent for a moment, then turned to Pluto, glancing at the box he held. He said coldly, "Pluto, open the box and take out the spear key. It's time to activate the spear pillar and summon Dialga and Palkia, as you command, Boss Chi-Ri." Pluto's eyes brimmed with excitement. With trembling hands, he lowered the box. Then, nervously, he retrieved the spear key, recently discovered somewhere on Chang'an Mountain, and respectfully handed it to Chi-Ri. Xinxing, and the rest of Team Galaxy watched with hope as Cherry took the gun key and approached the ruin's main gate. A perfect world is about to appear, and it belongs to our Team Galaxy. Xinxing roared inwardly, his heart brimming with excitement. Xinxing's eyes flickered as he gazed at Cherry standing before the ruin's main gate, his thoughts unsettled. A moment later, Cherry raised the gun key high in his hand, his eyes calmly fixed on the gate before him, silently waiting. As if sensing something, the gun key suddenly radiated a golden light, illuminating the ancient ruin's main gate and gradually enveloping it. The next moment, a resounding click echoed throughout the 7th floor, and the tightly closed door slowly opened, propelled by a mysterious force. The golden gemstone atop the ancient door flew through the air, swiftly disappearing into the ruin's interior, illuminating the steps along the way with a shimmering white light. The pillar of the spear is at the end of these ruins. Pluto, with his temples graying and a Mediterranean look, observed the scene before him and quickly approached Cherry, his voice trembling. Cherry nodded expressionlessly, his eyes flickering slightly as he gazed at the steps and passage before him. Everything is just as the ancient book says. Immediately, led by Cherry, the Galaxy team entered the pillar of the spear with radiant faces. Chapter 402 Summoning Dialga and Palkia. Another 5 minutes passed. Team Galaxy walked up the steps inside the gate and finally arrived at the oldest area within Chang'an Mountain, the Pillars of Spear. The ruins were shrouded in a pitch-black hue. 9 massive stone pillars stood on either side, their tops piercing with sharp points, as if shaped like spears, symbolizing Arceus' 18 sources of power. Following the passage between the pillars, a triangular altar appeared at its end. The altar was a mosaic of interwoven black and white, with flat stone pillars half the height of a man standing at each of its 3 corners. Inside the altar, 2 more stone pillars, about 1/3 the height of a man, appeared on either side of the triangle's apex, seemingly housing some kind of important item. Pluto carefully examined the spear pillar before him, a smug smile playing on his lips. He couldn't help but exclaim, "Is this the ancient spear pillar? Incredible, not even a scratch." Scarlet Sun glanced at it indifferently, then turned to Pluto and commanded, without emotion, "All right. Begin preparations according to the original plan." "Yes, Lord Scarlet Sun," Pluto and the rest of the galaxy team spoke in unison, their emotions incredibly excited, like the joy of a dream about to be fulfilled. Then, Pluto, comparing the information recorded in the ancient ruins on the tablet in his hand, began to arrange the numerous galaxy team members, placing their belongings in their respective positions. The diamond orb symbolizes Dialga and should be placed on the left third of the stone pillars. The white jade orb symbolizes Palkia and should be placed on the other side of the stone pillar. The remaining Enrido, Uxie, and Akonome need to be placed in the corresponding locations of Lakes of Unity, Wisdom, and Aspiration in the Sinar region. After receiving Pluto's instructions, many members of Team Galactic began to quickly pick up the corresponding items or Pokémon, carefully placing them on the corresponding stone pillars, and then silently retreated behind Akaji. Seeing that the items were placed successfully, Pluto walked straight to Akaji, stood on tiptoes, and said to him humbly, "Lord Akaji, everything is ready." Akaji nodded. Although his face was still expressionless, the trembling of his body showed that he was not at peace at the moment and was satisfied with Pluto's arrangements. Cherry slowly approached the triangular altar, his eyes flashing red. He slowly opened his arms and shouted towards the altar, "Enrido, Akonome, Uxie. Infuse the diamond and white jade orbs with a power passed down from ancient times. With the power of Arceus, the god of creation, let time and space overlap." Instantly, as Cherry's voice fell, the eyes of the controlled Enrido, Akonome, and Uxie flashed red. They suddenly raised their heads, radiating their respective powers through the red gems on their foreheads. Pink, yellow, and blue lights shone in the dark space, emitting an unparalleled brilliance and dazzling rainbow light, gradually intersecting along the direction of the triangular altar. The diamond and white jade orbs in the center of the altar revived together, emitting azure blue and white purple hues, and slowly converged at the center of the altar, transforming into a transparent sphere. At this moment, the power of the three lake gods, the power of Dialga and Palkia, and the power inherited from Arceus all shone together. Hades gazed at the vibrant scene before him. Quickly turning to the member of Team Jenga operating the equipment beside him, he roared in a resounding voice, "Now, fire!" "Yes, Lord Pluto." The member of Team Jenga, feeling a pang of fear, quickly responded to Hades' words and pressed the launch button. The red chains stored within the machine launched into the pitch-black sky, instantly transforming into two circular tunnels. As if sensing something, the dormant power within the diamond orb and the white jade orb began to stir, unleashing a powerful burst of energy along the tunnels above them. Seconds later, the two tunnels formed by the red chains opened, emanating two distinct, powerful auras. The sky beyond Chang'an Mountain was thick with dark clouds, instantly transforming day into night. A powerful wave of energy spread, gradually distorting the space near the mountain top, as if some terrifying presence was about to descend. Lu Feng and Sharona, who had just arrived at the 6th floor from the northern entrance of Chang'an Mountain, felt a little nervous when they saw the wild Pokémon around them panicking and looking towards the space below in a panic. They knew that they were still a little late this time. Judging from the strange phenomenon that occurred in Chang'an Mountain, Team Galactic's operation to summon Dialga and Palkia had already begun. The two sides secretly looked towards the 7th floor with mixed feelings, and shook their heads silently. "Lu Feng, I think we have to speed up." Sharona's golden hair fell like a waterfall, her beautiful eyes trembled slightly, and her eyes looked directly at the direction of the mountain top with determination. "Dialga and Palkia are about to appear." Lu Feng was silent for a while, his eyes became much deeper, and he took out two high-level Pokeballs directly from the Pokeball belt and handed them to Sharona solemnly. "Zulin, these two Pokemon are for you, Lu Feng. These are the legendary Pokemon from the Unova region, Earthcloud and Tornado. I hope you won't refuse them. I don't want you to get hurt by Dialga, the god of time, and Palkia, the god of space." Sharona stared at the two advanced orbs thrust into her hands, slightly stunned. These two legendary Pokemon were confiscated from Sakuki by Lu Feng during the Ripple Town incident. Originally, there should have been Thundercloud as well. However, Lu Feng, considering his lack of electric-type Pokemon, after much deliberation, ultimately decided to keep Thundercloud and let it stay with his parents for a while to protect them. Earthcloud and Tornado overlapped with some of Lu Feng's Pokemon's attributes, so he had left them unused for quite some time. Giving them to Sharona today seemed to give them a good home. Sharona hadn't expected Lu Feng to give her two legendary Pokemon, and her heart was in turmoil. She was about to refuse, but after meeting Lu Feng's stern gaze, She couldn't bring herself to say no. After a moment's silence, Sharona looked directly at Lu Feng, her usual sweet smile gracing her lips. She said tenderly, I understand. This time, let's fight side by side. Lu Feng nodded, his smile also plastered on his face. He reached out and took Sharona's hand, and together they ran towards the spear pillar of Skycrown Mountain. In an instant, Lu Feng and Sharona arrived at the gate to the ruins and ran up the steps that appeared before them. They soon came into sight of Team Jenga and two trembling tunnels above the spear pillars. Without thinking, Lu Feng threw two master balls, unleashing Kyurem and Rishiram, and directed them to attack the tunnels in the sky. An icy blue beam of light, brimming with chill, shot down the left tunnel, while a crimson pillar of fire, condensing with blazing flames, rushed into the right tunnel. There was a brief pause. Two terrifying roars echoed, followed by a series of explosions. The spatial channel, as if struck, began to distort in an unknown manner, significantly impacting the arrival of Dialga and Pokia. Scarlet Sun and Team Galaxy remained silent for a moment as they watched this sudden scene unfold, seemingly unable to react. Then, with faces filled with anger and brutality, they turned to Lu Feng and Sharona. At the same time, the atmosphere within the spear pillar grew incomparably heavy and eerie, a strong sense of oppression permeating the surroundings. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 403, Thousand Universe Arms. The Power of Arceus. A long moment passed. As if enraged, the two aura channels in the sky each emanated a furious roar, like thunderclaps from the ground, reverberating throughout the entire spear pillar. Hearing these two dragon roars, the faces of the members of Team Galactic trembled with excitement, their eyes filled with ecstasy and fiery passion, as if they had witnessed their own fate. Lu Feng and Sharona exchanged a glance. Then, as planned, Lu Feng would disrupt the ritual and prevent the arrival of Dialga and Pokia, while Sharona would clean up the scene for Team Galactic. Lu Feng leaped in front of Rishiram and released his three champion Pokémon, Garchomp, Gardevoir, and Deoxys, to rescue the three lake gods. Kyurem's dragon eyes fixed on the aura channel. Sensing the powerful dragon aura emanating from it, he roared to the heavens. A blazing glow of fire flashed across his body as he instantly transformed into his flame-white Kyurem form. Lu Feng looked at the somewhat agitated Kyurem, a hint of a smile in his eyes. He whispered to Kyurem, Kyurem, Dialga is in your hands. I think you'll enjoy such a powerful dragon god opponent, HMPH. I get it, so nagging, Kyurem snorted in dissatisfaction. A stream of fire emanated from his nose, and his white wings fluttered rapidly as he charged towards the left Nimbus passage. Watching Kyurem already in action, Lu Feng slowly withdrew his gaze and gently patted Rishiram. Rishiram, Pokia is in your hands. Don't let me down in this battle between dragon gods, roar. Rishiram's bright blue eyes flashed, and he fixed his gaze firmly on the Nimbus passage to the right. Following a powerful dragon roar, he flapped his massive white wings and approached at incredible speed. Near the triangular altar, Garchomp and three other champion-level Pokémon each chose a direction and flew off, quickly reaching Enrido, Uxie, and Acnum. Just as they were about to break through the energy beams and free the three lake gods from the pillar, they saw the four leaders of Team Galactic release their Pokémon and rapidly attack. A peak-level Tyranidar's right hand glowed wide as it shot through the air, its powerful attack about to land on Garchomp. Garchomp's eyes flashed with a fierce, sharp edge. He tensed his body slightly, then assumed the white crowsword attack style, leaping forward and slashing. In a flash of white light, Garchomp leaped over Tyranidar and landed steadily on the ground. Still in midair, a trace of fear still lingered on its face. Tyranidar plummeted to the ground without resistance, instantly losing its ability to fight. Meanwhile, Gardevoir and Deoxys unleashed their powerful psychic powers, transforming into a terrifying, intense mental storm that swept through the remaining Pokémon of Team Galactic, instantly crushing them. While these Pokémon hadn't lost their combat capabilities, their current state meant they had little chance of fighting back. Zhengxing and Pluto's expressions suddenly changed, their emotions swirling wildly. They couldn't help but roar angrily at them. Damn them. This is unforgivable, Zhengxing, get the others to attack. Pluto looked at him anxiously, his tone laced with urgency and anxiety. The energy surge is almost reaching its peak. Dialga and Palkia are about to appear. We can't let them ruin our plan. Xing, Pluto, and the other two remained silent. After a glance at each other, they were about to have the remaining members of Team Galactic launch a combined attack with all their Pokémon, stalling for Dialga and Palkia to arrive. But before they could make a move, they felt as if a heavy burden had fallen upon them, pinning them to the spot, unable to move. Gardevoir, controlling Team Jenga, warned Garchomp and Deoxys. Garchomp and Deoxys nodded in understanding, quickly returning to Merido and Acnum. Unleashing a powerful burst of strength, they soon broke free from the stone pillars, their bodies toppling over involuntarily. Fortunately, Garchomp and Deoxys quickly embraced them. Meanwhile, Uxie, who had escaped due to the disruption of the ritual, was caught by the eagle-eyed Rotom. Without the blessing of the three lake gods, the halo around the triangular altar gradually dimmed and slowly ceased. However, with the Nimbus channel already open, there was no immediate way to prevent Dialga and Palkia from appearing. Elsewhere, Akaji remained calm, gazing towards the sky, his face devoid of the panic of falling behind. Sharona approached with Tornado and Land Cloud, her expression complex, unable to resist asking the question that had been lingering within her. Chiri, I never thought you were the mastermind behind Team Galaxy, HMPH. I never thought the Sinnoh champion would resort to such a sneak attack. Chiri, seemingly devoid of all emotion, stared at Sharona with a frozen expression and a heavy snort. Can you tell me why, with such immense wealth and status, could you choose to walk in the light, only to fall into evil and dwell in darkness? Sharona ignored Chiri's taunts and instead couldn't help but ask the question that had been lingering within her. In her mind, Chiri's actions could be summed up in one simple sentence. Why, Your Majesty, would you rebel? It was utterly baffling and incomprehensible. Chiri was silent for a while, his eyes fixed on the purple and blue light wheel channels, and then he looked at Sharona and answered as if he was giving a speech. Don't you think the world now is very dirty? It is full of meaningless fights everywhere. There was no so-called fight in the world at the beginning of its birth, nor was there such a fragile thing as the mind. It is simply wrong to fight through Pokémon battles. Only when all of this is eliminated, all disputes and cholera will no longer exist. I will manipulate the power of Dialga and Palkia to distort the current time and space, annihilate all meaningless struggles and fragile minds, and then create a brand new world where there is no fight in mind. Don't you think this is more noble and great than the so-called status of a wealthy businessman? Sharona was stunned for a while, as if she had not expected Chiri's purpose to be like this, and then she couldn't help but retorted, Chiri, stop it. A world devoid of all human connection, devoid of all human emotion, is like a stagnant pool of water. It's not a perfect world at all, but merely a dead, empty void. Chiri shook his head slightly, not quite agreeing with Sharona's words. He then raised his right palm toward the sky. The eerie red gem embedded in his glove suddenly erupted with brilliant light, piercing the Nimbus channel. Sharona, let experience prove everything. Dialga, Palkia, come. Reveal yourselves. The next moment, powerful beams of light erupted from each of the two Nimbus channels, directly breaking through the blockade of Kyurem and Reshiram. Above the spear pillar altar, they gradually transformed into the shapes of two Pokémon. The Pokémon on the left, adorned with silver metallic parts and several light blue stripes, resembled a dark blue sauropod dinosaur. Its head had a square, conical protrusion, with light blue stripes extending from the tip to its neck, giving it a ferocious appearance. The Pokémon on the right was a pale purple, its legs standing upright in midair. It had theropod features, with purple-black rectangular stripes. The inner sides of its arms were dark gray. On each shoulder, a purple striped disc was embedded with a pearl, each surrounded by a gray ring. Dialga, the god of time. Palkia, the god of space. As they appeared, a red, cross-shaped wheel condensed from the void, locking onto their abdomens, clamping and controlling them. This was the power of Arceus, the god of creation, the Thousand Arms. Sharona gazed into the distance with agitated emotion. Upon seeing Dialga and the other legendary Pokémon, she muttered in a low voice, Dialga and Palkia, the three legendary Pokémon of the lake, the Pokémon I've always wanted to see, and yet, I saw them in this situation. It's still too late. Feng sighed, his heart heavy as he looked at the already appearing Dialga and Palkia. He hadn't anticipated that, despite his efforts, Dialga and Palkia would eventually arrive. Time and space intertwined, gradually generating a powerful energy that distorted reality. The battle between the legendary dragon gods was about to begin. Chapter 404, The Lord of the Reversed World, Giratana. Inside the spear pillar, Chiri's eyes trembled slightly as he gazed at Dialga and Pukia, now restrained by the thousand cosmic arm. Then, he quietly waited. Dialga and Pukia felt the corrosive force emanating from their abdomens and began to struggle relentlessly, attempting to free themselves from the thousand cosmic arms' influence. However, since the thousand cosmic arms' power came from Arceus, the god of creation, and was specifically designed to counter Dialga and Pukia, they were completely unable to break free. Feng, observing the two dragon gods' increasingly dim eyes, could not help but shout to Kyurem and Reshiram, crossing flames. Target the red chains on Dialga and Pukia's abdomens, roar. Kyurem and Reshiram flapped their wings and soared into the air, roaring with mighty dragon roars, their eyes filled with rage and fury. The turbines on their tails quickly ignited a blazing flame, then spewed out a massive burst of flames. Crossing flames. Two incomparably huge flames, scorching hot, swept across the dark sky of the spear pillar. Under the gaze of everyone, they directly hit the 2,000 cosmic wrists of the corrosion dragon god, and then burned violently. Time passed bit by bit. The blazing flame slowly extinguished, but the 1,000 cosmic wrists remained intact, without a trace of damage at all. Seeing this scene, Feng and Sharona felt their hearts sink and their faces became more solemn. Humph! There's no point in struggling. Xianxing, who was standing aside, saw Dialga and Pukia about to be controlled, and couldn't help but raise a smile at the corner of his mouth, saying with disdain, "You cannot resist the red chains imbued with Arceus power." Xianxing paused for a moment, feeling the increasing force of Gardevoir upon him. He grunted, then revealed a manic expression and roared with laughter, "You simply cannot stop Team Galactic's actions. The emergence of a new world is inevitable." Feng listened to Xianxing's words, his expression remaining calm as he retorted, "It's too early to tell what the outcome will be. I will bring Kyurem and Reshiram with me and let you witness the annihilation of Team Galactic with your own eyes." He and Sharona resumed their attack, continuously assaulting the 1,000 cosmic arm. Perhaps sensing the provocation, the power hidden within the 1,000 cosmic arm erupted with even greater and terrifying energy, unleashing a powerful backlash that directly ripped away flame-white Kyurem, Reshiram, Feng, and the others, sending them plummeting to the ground. Furthermore, as the power within the 1,000 cosmic arm accelerated, it eroded Dialga and Pukia's will even more rapidly, quickly crushing them. At that moment, Dialga and Pukia's eyes flushed red, their gazes becoming glazed. They hovered silently in the sky, like two soulless puppets. Scarlet Sun gazed at Dialga and Pukia, now calm and under his control. He suddenly opened his arms, his face grave and solemn, declaring, "Dialga, the embodiment of time, Pukia, the symbol of space, unleash the power within you and transform this world into the ultimate world I envision. Create a brand new galaxy, a perfect universe free of mind and strife." Dialga and Pukia, their wills gone, roared to the heavens at Scarlet Sun's command, shaking their spear pillars slightly as they unleashed powerful energy from their mouths. The two terrifying energy waves merged on the triangular altar, erupting in an incredibly dazzling white light that quietly distorted the surrounding space, quickly forming a void, a singularity of all things. The universe is about to be born, and everything will be reset. As Chiri noticed the growing singularity of all things, the roar of thunder and lightning, he became even more certain of his dream. Let this ugly world, this foolish psychic power, vanish. As Chiri continued to howl, the energy reaction caused by the expansion of the singularity of all things continued to grow, gradually causing the space atop Mount Chang'an to undergo a drastic transformation. Dazzling white lightning and thunder, like a divine retribution, instantly alarmed the entire Sinnoh region. The Yamanashi Research Institute near Masuga Town detected the changes occurring at Mount Chang'an. All the researchers' faces were filled with fear and shock. A female researcher looked at Professor Yamanashi with panic. Dr. Yamanashi, the energy reaction atop Mount Chang'an is continuing to grow. If this continues, it will soon exceed the critical point. Professor Yamanashi remained silent, her eyes fixed on the images transmitted on the screen. She stood there in silence, her emotions becoming extremely subdued. The handsome Interpol man, who had already collaborated with Miss Chuncha from various locations to apprehend all Team Galactic members except for Xianguanzan, looked at Professor Yamanashi, whose face was heavy, and the increasingly panicked female researcher, and couldn't help but ask, "Professor Yamanashi, What happens if the energy exceeds the critical point? Professor Yamanashi was silent for a moment, then sighed quietly and said, once the energy reaches the critical point, the accumulated energy will explode, breaking through the constraints of the singularity and gradually transforming into a new universe. Once a new universe is formed, the Pokémon world will simply not be able to withstand the immense pressure. It's very likely. The handsome man felt a sense of powerlessness as he listened to Professor Yamanashi's explanation. Although Professor Yamanashi hadn't finished speaking, he could fully imagine the outcome. He could only clench his fists, veins bulging on the back of his hands, and stare at the large screen in front of him, praying and cheering for Lu Feng and Sirona. As they watched the new universe expand, the smiles on the faces of many members of Team Galactic grew even brighter, as if they had foreseen their own future, sneering at Gardevoir and silently laughing. Meanwhile, the darkness surrounding the spear pillar began to tremble. A pitch-black figure, hidden within the gloomy world, suddenly opened its eyes. Its pupils were a fiery crimson, radiating a terrifying, murderous gleam. It passed through the intersection of the inverted world and the real world, appearing within the spear pillar as a massive black shadow. It, Dialga, and Palkia each occupied a position within the spear pillar, forming a triangle. Gazing upon Dialga and Palkia, now mad and controlled by Cherry, the dark figure erupted with a terrifying aura and pressure, sweeping across the entire spear pillar space, landing heavily upon Cherry. The terrifying pressure, like a volcanic eruption, made Cherry breathless, as if he were suffocating. Cherry's face flushed red as he gazed at the dark shadow, his breath struggling as he spoke. Pokémon who can only emerge from the shadows, you're too late. Do you also intend to resist me, a being who possesses the power of Dialga and Palkia? HMPH. What a nuisance. The dark shadow ignored Cherry's fury and instead shifted his gaze to Lu Feng. He sensed Arceus' power in Lu Feng and couldn't help but stare at him a few more times. Immediately, his form emerged from the shadows, revealing his true form before everyone's eyes. This Pokémon possessed two enormous, ghostly wings, tipped with red claw-like structures. A golden half-ring encircled its neck from its back. Its 6 sturdy legs, each end in claws, bore a striking resemblance to a giant gray dragon. Sharona, observing the Pokémon before her, recalled the description she had read and couldn't help but exclaim, Giratina, the Lord of the Reversed World. Chapter 405 Paranoia, Cherry's Choice. Giratina heard Sharona's voice and glanced at her briefly out of the corner of his eye, then turned his gaze to Dialga and Palkia. Through his connection to the inverted world, Giratina could clearly sense that the real world was gradually crumbling due to the emergence of a new universe, and countless garbage was falling into the inverted world, which made him furious. Roar, an angry dragon roar echoed, and Giratina's body disappeared into the shadows, floating like a ghost, rushing towards Dialga and Palkia with lightning speed. Shadow Sneak. Cherry noticed Giratina's movements and quickly looked at Dialga and Palkia, shouting loudly, Dialga, time roar, Palkia, Void Slash. Giratina's figure suddenly emerged from the shadows, just as he was about to swing his ghostly claws to attack Dialga and Palkia. At the critical moment, Dialga halted his energy output, tilting his neck back slightly. The pale blue diamond on his chest shone, and he unleashed a powerful force capable of warping time, aiming directly at Giratina. Roar of Time. Palkia also paused, turning slightly. The purple pearl on his right arm shone, and instantly condensed a force powerful enough to rend space. He slashed directly at Giratina's position. Subsonic Slash. Boom. Boom. Instantly. Shadow Strike versus Roar of Time versus Subsonic Slash. 3 powerful moves collided, unleashing a powerful surge of energy. Rumbling explosions echoed in succession, and a dazzling white light instantly obscured everyone's vision, making it impossible to open their eyes. After a few seconds of stalemate, the combined attack of Subsonic Slash and Roar of Time broke through Shadow Strike's obstruction with unstoppable force, sending Giratina flying. Giratina was defeated. Sharona frowned, watching the scene with some dismay. She had thought Giratina's presence would help them rescue Dialga and Palkia. Unexpectedly, facing the combined forces of Dialga and Palkia, Giratina was no match. Lu Feng shook his head, his eyes fixed on the backward flying Giratina. He sighed and said, it's not that Giratina can't match Dialga and Palkia, but that he simply can't unleash his full power in the real world. Giratina, Dialga, and Palkia are legendary dragon gods born together, each wielding an incredibly powerful divine ministry. The relative strengths of their powers are evident from the descriptions in mythology. Dialga is said to be the embodiment of time, Palkia is considered the will of space, and Giratina symbolizes the shadow of Arceus. He can transform into his origin form, further enhancing his power. Giratina, currently in its normal form, could only barely withstand the combined attack of Dialga and Palkia. This clearly demonstrates that Giratina's power in its full form is undoubtedly superior to Dialga and Palkia, not to mention the two high legendaries, now mad and manipulated like puppets by the Red Sun. Sharona nodded in realization, but the worry on her face remained undimmed. Lu Feng took a deep breath, turned to Kyurem, and commanded solemnly, Kyurem, Frigid Flame, Reshiram, Cyan Flame. As Lu Feng's voice sank, Kyurem soared back into the air, its tail turbine revving rapidly, erupting in intense flames. As its hands clashed, a dreamlike blue-red energy coalesced, and a wave of freezing air erupted. Frigid Flame. Reshiram bared his sharp fangs, his brilliant blue dragon eyes fixed on Palkia. From his mouth, a brilliant, intense cyan flame erupted, launching at breakneck speed. Blue flames. Giratina, having regained his feet, saw this, his deep eyes flickering slightly. A fleeting thought flashed in his eyes, and he quickly transformed into pitch-black shadow, dashing towards Dialga like a streak of light. Shadow Strike. Faced with three incredibly powerful attacks, fear flashed in Dialga and Palkia's eyes. They instinctively struggled for a moment, then, under Red Sun's command, unleashed their signature abilities once again. In an instant, four distinct forces collided, warping time and shattering space. Raging flames burned, extreme cold froze, and the power of shadows waited for its opportunity, causing the spear pillar to tremble violently. The terrifying aftermath of the battle spread, forcing Gardevoir, who was nearby, to abandon its attempts to restrain Team Jenga and teleport back to Lu Feng's side. Garchomp and Deoxys also sensed the danger and quickly dodged the blasts of energy, narrowly reaching Lu Feng's rear. They then entrusted the weakened three-lake gods to Sharona's care. After a moment's wait, the power of Kyurem and Reshiram neutralized Dialga and Palkia's energy. Giratina, taking advantage of their moment of instability, emerged from the shadows and furiously slammed into them. A split second later, Dialga and Palkia suffered significant injuries. Like kites with their strings cut, the powerful impact sent them careening towards two massive stone pillars deep within, their faces thick with pain. Cherry's eyes narrowed slightly, his expression becoming even more rigid. He knew he couldn't wait any longer. In their current state, Dialga and Palkia were no match for the three legendary dragon gods. If they insisted on fighting, the outcome would most likely be defeat. At this moment, Zhenxing and Huoxing seized the opportunity to move behind Cherry, their eyes gazing enthusiastically at the new universe before them. Lord Cherry, let's go. Let's go to our world, Huoxing said to Cherry with great excitement, the image of the new world reflected in his eyes. Although Zhenxing remained silent, the smile on his face and his constantly trembling body betrayed his inner restlessness and anticipation for the new world. However, to their disappointment, after they finished speaking, Dialga and Palkia, who had risen again, suddenly roared at them, instantly stirring up a massive gust of air that forced Zhenxing and Huoxing to retreat. Then, under Cherry's control, Dialga and Palkia once again engaged in a battle with Kyurem, Reshiram, and Giratina. A new battle erupted far from the entrance to the new universe. Seeing this, Zhenxing suddenly felt a bad premonition. Suppressing his fear of legendary Pokémon, he demanded, Lord Cherry, what do you mean by this? He knew full well that Dialga and Palkia would never have attacked them without Cherry's instructions. After all, the time and space dragons were now mere puppets in Cherry's hands. Sure enough, Cherry's face darkened upon hearing his words. He glanced at them with a faint, cold glance and replied, the new world doesn't need you. You will only pollute my perfect world, the new world belongs to me. I can't possibly understand you. Zhenxing, Huoxing, and the rest of Team Galaxy were struck by lightning. They stared at Cherry's back in disbelief, speechless. No need. Zhenxing's face turned pale, his eyes dim. Huoxing stood there, lost and dazed, like a puppet. Have we been abandoned? Those shocked. Suxing and Pluto weren't as flabbergasted as Zhenxing and Huoxing, as if they'd already mentally prepared for this. Hey! I knew it would be like this. Pluto's aged face was filled with sarcasm, and he couldn't help but scoff at himself. Suxing stood still, his eyes flickering, his thoughts unsettled. Elsewhere, Lu Feng and Sharona had also heard Cherry's words, and their expressions shifted slightly. Lu Feng, though slightly surprised, remained calm, while Sharona was completely stunned. She hadn't expected Cherry to make such a choice, and she fell silent. Only then did Sharona begin to understand Cherry's paranoia. If he could so easily abandon even his subordinates who had dedicated themselves to his ideals, then wealth and status naturally mattered even less. At the same moment, Giratina's voice suddenly reached Lu Feng's mind, capturing his full attention. "Human, I need your help." Lu Feng subconsciously looked in the direction of the battle, and his eyes met Giratina's. Chapter 406, Overcoming the Laws of Space and Time. After a long pause, Lu Feng withdrew his gaze, a look of hesitation and uncertainty on his face. "Giratina, human, it's me. I need your help." "What do you want me to do, human?" "The red chains binding Dialga and Pokia are derived from the power of Arceus. Only by using the same power can we shatter them and free those two fools, so, I need your help. I can sense the power of Arceus in you, but don't you also possess Arceus? My power is needed to maintain the reversed world." Upon hearing Giratina's message, Lu Feng's expression suddenly dawned with enlightenment, and he nodded silently. No wonder the Thousand Cosmic Arm remained unscathed when Kyurem and Reshiram's abilities initially struck it. It turned out the unlock code was incorrect, preventing the red chains from being shattered, allowing Dialga and Pokia to continue being eroded by Arceus power. Judging from the original story's cracking method, it was with the help of the three lake gods that Xiaozi and the others shattered the red chains, freeing Dialga and Pokia. Thinking of this, Lu Feng couldn't help but grumble inwardly. The Arceus faction is quite interesting, even implementing an automatic identification system. Without someone close to them, there's no way to defeat them. Then, Lu Feng looked up again, nodded at Giratina, and said with a hint of a smile, "Giratina, please lead me to Dialga and Pokia." Meanwhile, Kyurem and Reshiram were still locked in a fight with Dialga and Pokia, unable to separate, so Lu Feng had to ask Giratina for help. Giratina glanced at the four dragon gods still engaged in battle, nodded with a hint of resignation, and used his psychic power to lift Lu Feng from the ground, silently landing above him. Before leaving, Lu Feng exchanged a glance with Sharona, then he and Giratina disappeared into the shadows, cautiously approaching the two combatants. He retrieved his backpack and carefully searched for a moment before pulling out a magical tablet and silently waiting. Giratina noticed Lu Feng's actions and, upon seeing him remove one of Arceus' tablets, a look of surprise crossed her face. After a moment's reflection, she warned him, "Human, Arceus is about to awaken. If you possess his tablet, you will be in trouble." Thousands of years have left him with no trust in humans. Lu Feng was silent for a moment, a wry smile playing on his face. "Giratina, I've already prepared for what you're talking about, but this magical tablet was given to Arceus by Mew. He won't attack me directly, will he?" "Perhaps," Giratina said, her face grim and a subtle sneer flickering across her face. "Never hope for the best. The Arceus of the past might, the Arceus who is about to awaken, Giratina found Lu Feng's wishful thinking laughable. Regardless of whether Arceus, now with a changed mindset, would show some respect from you, simply seeing a human before him would inevitably bring back memories of his own betrayal. Furthermore, Lu Feng possessed more than one attribute tablet, which would only make Arceus believe that humans were once again encroaching on his authority and power. Something truly fascinating would surely unfold. The thought of the possible scenario filled the gruff Giratina with anticipation. Using his transcendence power, Lu Feng seemed to sense Giratina's thoughts and couldn't help but curl his lips, silently grumbling, "Will I be banished to the reverse world? What a personality." Meanwhile, the situation on the battlefield grew increasingly tense. The four legendary dragon gods fiercely engaged in a fierce battle, gradually forming a stalemate of even strength. Kyurem and Reshiram exchanged a glance, then, leveraging their connection to the origin, launched a direct attack on Pokia. Two powerful energies descended upon him, plunging him to the ground. Dialga, still sluggish and unable to react, attempted to assist Pokia, but was unable to intervene. He could only watch helplessly as Kyurem and Reshiram triumphed. Kyurem and Reshiram then repeated the previous tactics, uniting to defeat Dialga. They quickly subdued him and forcibly trapped him away from Pokia. Lu Feng, realizing this opportunity couldn't be missed, immediately grasped the sharp horns atop Giratina's head, took a deep breath, and said, "Giratina, it's time to act." Giratina nodded, clearly noting the shifting situation. He quickly emerged from the shadows and arrived beside Pokia. He placed his 6 massive feet on Pokia, temporarily restraining him as he attempted to strike back. "Human, it's your turn now, override the laws of space and time." Feng, clutching the magical tablet tightly in his hand, unleashed his override power, channeling the Arceus power within the tablet and radiating it directly onto the red-chained thousand cosmic arm, causing the imprisoned arm to undergo an unpredictable transformation. Seeing this, Giratina suddenly summoned all his dragon energy, transforming it into a massive, sharp claw. It struck the thousand cosmic arm with a powerful blow, instantly leaving cracks on it. Dragon Claw. As Giratina continued to attack, the already cracked thousand cosmic arm was shattered into dust, falling into the space of the spear pillar. Without the thousand cosmic arm's control, Palkia involuntarily fell backward, hitting the ground hard, his spirit becoming extremely weak. Seeing Palkia free, Feng and Giratina followed suit, easily freeing Dialga from his control. Meanwhile, after Dialga and Palkia regained their composure, the time and space energies that permeated the spear pillar slowly began to dissipate. The new universe before the Red Sun was affected, suddenly shrinking and disappearing. Faced with this sudden change, Team Jenga and Red Sun were immediately shocked. Is it going to disappear? Pluto's eyes trembled as he watched the shrinking passage, unable to help but exclaim, "Is this the end?" Scarlet Sun snorted coldly, glanced back at everyone, and said expressionlessly, "This is my world, my ideal, orderly world where there's no need for a heart. I'll never give it to anyone else." With a low roar, Scarlet Sun leaped directly into the disappearing passage, disappearing along with the entire passage into the Pillar of Spear. Sharona watched this scene, shaking her head coldly. "Scary Sun, you're still too paranoid after all." After a moment's silence, she shifted her gaze to the rest of Team Galaxy and said to Tornado and Land Cloud behind her, "Tornado, Land Cloud, the rest of Team Galaxy is in your care." Land Cloud, Cirrus, Tornado and Land Cloud nodded, and together they flew towards the rest of Team Galaxy, unleashing a burst of their power, instantly crushing the resistance of the Team Galaxy and capturing all of them. After doing all this, Sharona breathed a sigh of relief with exhaustion, just in time to see Feng get off Giratina and walk towards her quickly. Chapter 407, The Beginning. The Sleeping Arceus. A few minutes later, Feng came to Sharona, and after seeing that she had finished dealing with the affairs of Team Galaxy, he couldn't help but hold her fair and soft hands, and raised a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. At the same time, the system noticed that this incident was over, and the mechanical prompt sound rang directly in Feng's ears, and the corresponding reward was sent to Feng's backpack. Ding. Congratulations to the host for completing the legendary mission The Destruction of Team Galaxy, and obtaining Water Origin 1, can directly help the Water-type Quasi-Champion Peak Strength Pokémon breakthrough. Sharona looked at Feng in a daze, her face slightly flushed. Although this was not the first time that Feng had held her hand, she was still a little hesitant to let go when she realized that there were many members of Team Galaxy watching around, and she quickly pulled her hand out of Feng's hand. She looked at Feng's dejected look, gathered her hair that was blown by the wind with her hand, and smiled on her pretty face. At this time, a weakened Dialga and Palkia, their spirits drooping, flew before them, offering heartfelt thanks to Feng and Sharona. "Humans, thank you so much for your help this time. Dialga, Palkia, I hope you can quickly stabilize and restore the Sinnoh region," Sharona pleaded earnestly, looking up at the two massive dragon gods. Feng, looking at Dialga and Palkia, was just beginning to contemplate how to profit from their efforts. But after hearing Sharona's words, he glanced back at the weakened dragon gods before him, and after a moment's hesitation, he remained silent. Dialga and Palkia nodded, looking at Sharona with an apologetic look. "We understand. We apologize for the trouble this has caused you." With that, they turned and flew into the mid-air aura tunnel, returning to their respective dimensions. The aura tunnel above the spear pillar had closed since their departure. Immediately afterwards, Dialga and Palkia each used their energy to suppress the turmoil in time and space, gradually stabilizing the Pokémon world and restoring time to normal. Feng watched them depart, a look of despair crossing his face. He couldn't help but wail inwardly, two more free legendary Pokémon, completely clueless about the ways of the world. At that moment, he silently resolved to double his efforts the next time he encountered Dialga and Palkia, to make up for his loss this time. As long as he had the Arceus tablet, he was bound to be involved in the Demidina incident again, and he would inevitably encounter Dialga and Palkia. The thought of this instantly lifted Feng's previously depressed mood. Sharona noticed Lu Feng's changing expression and followed his gaze towards the now vanished passage. Unaware of his thoughts, she couldn't help but chuckle, her smile blooming like a flower. Then, Giratina emerged from the shadows and stood before Lu Feng and Sharona. Its dragon eyes fixed on Lu Feng, and using telepathy, it detected his thoughts, a strange expression on its face. "Interesting human, looking forward to seeing you again." With that, it vanished into the shadows and returned to the reversed world, giving Lu Feng and Sharona no chance to react. They exchanged a look of bewilderment. Lu Feng muttered with a wry smile, "Are all dragon legendary Pokémon so cunning these days? I was just trying to connect with you. Why are you walking so fast?" "I'm not a monster, Dialga and Pokia, Giratina." Sharona smiled silently at this, silently taking out her phone and contacting the handsome man and Miss Junsha, instructing them to send someone to Xiangu Mountain to retrieve the remaining members of Team Jinga. As a result, Team Jinga, entrenched in the Sinnoh region, was officially annihilated after this battle. Meanwhile, as Lu Feng and Sharona waited for the handsome man and his companions, Pokia and Dialga, having returned to another dimension, finally quelled the turmoil and the energy of the time and space dimensions, gradually restoring both dimensions to their original state. Watching everything return to normal, exhausted and wounded, Dialga and Pokia silently closed their eyes and fell into deep sleep, slowly recovering from their injuries. Unbeknownst to them, the imperfect new universe created by their combined power was causing considerable turmoil as it oppressed the Pokémon world. The terrifying energy fluctuations startled many legendary Pokémon. In a space intersecting with the Sinnoh region, white jade steps emerged from the void, spreading out until they reached the very beginning, the end of the sky. A completely white Pokémon, resembling a horse, a unicorn, or a centaur, slumbered there. With each breath, a powerful and terrifying aura permeated its being. A cross-shaped wheel connected to its body from its abdomen, and behind it, faintly floating 6 distinct ancient stone tablets, emanated a sacred, great, noble, and ancient majesty. Yet, something puzzling was that between the brows of such a sacred and majestic being, a deep hatred and rage lingered, creating a formidable aura. As if sensing something, the Pokémon's face, torso, mane, and tail, outlined by gray vertical stripes, trembled slightly, as if trying to awaken. However, despite repeated struggles, it ultimately failed to revive. Only a soft, murmuring sound remained, faintly echoing throughout the initial space. "Damnus," he declared, "humans who covet my power, traitors will not be forgiven, humanity must be punished." Furthermore, the cross-shaped thousand-universe arm on his abdomen emanated strands of power, tracing the white jade steps between the origins and escaping into the dimensional fissures between time and space. Drawn by this vortex of supreme power, the time dimension inhabited by Dialga and the space dimension inhabited by Pokia began to move at an extremely slow pace, gradually coming into contact and overlapping. Space began to warp, and time shifted. In that instant, two dimensions, previously independent of each other, suddenly intersected. Tragically, Dialga and Pokia, slumbering from their severe injuries and recovering from their superficial wounds, were unaware of this subtle shift. Elsewhere, suffering from the tremors of time and space, and the influence of supreme power, a ripple appeared in the Sinnoh region's long river of time. Thousands of years ago, Medina was still a desolate place and had just experienced a meteorite disaster. Fortunately, the god of creation, Arceus, sacrificed himself to withstand the damage of countless meteorites, so that the entire Sinnoh could avoid the fate of being sunk by meteorites. Due to the impact of the meteorite hitting the Pokémon world, space became turbulent and distorted. In a desolate land with few people, a narrow hole suddenly appeared in space. "Is this a whole new world?" A young man with light blue hair, a gloomy face, wearing white clothes and a rainbow-colored R logo embroidered on the top of his left chest, walked out of this space. He frowned and looked at the scene in front of him, his face full of surprise and contemplation. "That little bug that escaped, I will find you." Chapter 408, The Ultimate Beast, the Evil Eater King. Thousands of years ago, in the Sinnoh region, Medina, atop the towering Medina Mountain, a majestic, classical temple stood between heaven and earth. Surrounding this temple were bustling human towns, built around a beautiful lake. Countless trees and plants flourished, ancient trees lush and evergreen, and the fragrance of fresh flowers permeated the air, evoking a vibrant vitality. Everything seemed so beautiful. If it weren't for existing records, no one would have imagined that this beautiful town, surrounded by fertile and abundant land, had been a desolate, barren land just 10 years ago. Standing before the temple, Damis, gazing down upon the bountiful Medina from his perch, recalled his first encounter with Arceus, his expression lost in thought. Damis was filled with gratitude for Arceus's gift of the life gem, allowing him to use its power to improve the land, transforming Medina from a barren land into the fertile, human-inhabited land it is today. Therefore, he specially built a majestic temple on the high mountain of Medina, dedicated to Arceus, the god of creation, to express his deep gratitude for his kindness. Meanwhile, Shizen emerged from the temple and slowly approached Damis's side. He gazed upon the bountiful Medina, his eyes filled with deep longing and fascination. After pausing for a moment, Shizen casually asked, "Lord Damis, the date you agreed to meet with Arceus is almost here, isn't it?" Damis nodded, his face filled with emotion and gratitude. "Yes. In a few days it will be the day that Arceus and I agreed upon. Medina has become what it is today thanks to his help. If it weren't for the life gem lent by Arceus, who would have thought that Medina, which is now so rich, was still a barren and desolate land not long ago?" Kizin was silent for a while, his eyes flickered slightly, and then he said softly with some temptation, "If the life gem could stay in Medina forever." Damis heard Kizin's words, an angry expression suddenly appeared on his face, and he couldn't help but scolded, "Kizin, put away your inappropriate thoughts. The life gem was only lent to us by Arceus, it does not belong to our Medina. Being able to use the power of the life gem to make Medina the rich place it is today is already a kind gift from Arceus to us." Upon hearing this, Kizin apologized to Damis in fear and trepidation. "Lord Damis, I just said it briefly, please forgive me." "Huh?" Damis groaned and returned to the temple silently. Shizen watched him retreat, then glanced back at the beautiful and prosperous Medina before him. His heart was filled with conflict and turmoil. After a long moment, his face darkened as he finally made a decision. Medina's present state is entirely due to the life gem. I will never allow it to become desolate again. Shizen clenched his fists, silently roaring inwardly, "The life gem belongs to Medina. I will never let Arceus take it away." A week later, a solar eclipse appeared in the sky, devouring the sun's radiance, as if foreshadowing something. Amidst the darkness, a ripple suddenly appeared in the sky, a brilliant light illuminating the heavens, opening a passage between the real world and the beginning. Filled with joy, Arceus descended from the beginning to Medina and soon arrived before the temple built by Damis, hovering high in the sky. "Damis, as promised, I've come to retrieve the life gem. The life gem is right here. I'd like to treat you well. Lord Arceus. Please follow me." Damis heard Arceus' voice and silently emerged from the temple, clutching the scepter containing the life gem. His face, veiled in darkness, he extended an invitation to Arceus. Arceus nodded and swiftly flew into the temple. Following Damis's steps, he arrived at a majestic temple and stood before him, waiting. Damis placed a replica of the life gem on the base of the lotus tray. Then, slowly turning to look at Arceus, his eyes fixed, he extended his left hand and shouted, "Come. Take it back." The next moment, Damis' voice had barely left his lips when countless Pokémon suddenly emerged from the hollowed-out areas on either side of the temple and attacked the unsuspecting Arceus. Blue lightning roared and crackled, carrying an aura of destruction and devastation. Combined with the power of countless Pokémon, it merged into an even more terrifying energy, instantly striking Arceus and pinning him to his spot. Without the protection of the lightning slab, Arceus was completely immune to electric attacks. Caught in the raging thunder, he leaned back slightly, a look of pain on his face, and demanded in disbelief and anger, "What are you doing?" Damis didn't respond. Instead, he reached the suspension bridge behind the hall and waved his hand, signaling to bring down the massive chandelier that towered over the hall. Instantly, the massive, heavy wooden chandelier plummeted from the sky, its weighted force slamming into Arceus' back. Arceus's front body toppled, his eyes slightly closed, and he couldn't help but scream. At the same time, all the Pokémon ambushing Arceus fled, but before he could react, the massive rock from the temple's roof fell again, burying Arceus. A short while later, Arceus broke free from the boulders, his eyes transforming from a vibrant green to a fierce, ferocious crimson. He dragged his wounded body closer to the life orb. After sensing its aura, he quickly realized something was amiss. Arceus frowned, a look of horrified anger on his face. Damis approached Shizen, waving his scepter stiffly, replying like a puppet on a string, "Yes, that's a fake. The real one is here. For the sake of Midena's future, I can't return the life orb to you." Arceus stared at the scepter in Damas's hand, and the life orb within, stunned in place, as if he hadn't expected Damas to do this. At that moment, the Pokémon that had attacked Arceus reappeared and attacked him once again. Azure lightning struck Arceus, filling him with sorrow and resentment. "Foolish, how dare you betray me and even attempt to kill me?" Arceus growled fiercely, then suddenly erupted with a terrifying energy surge. Powerful, dangerous spheres of light gathered from his forehead and shot upwards, transforming into countless plumes of falling energy blasts, destroying the ancient temple. Judgment Gravel, the terrifying attack instantly shattered the temple, sending Damas, Shizen, and the others plummeting into the abyss. Arceus gazed toward the abyss with immense resentment. Even though Damas was now dead, his resentment and overwhelming rage remained undimmed. After a moment's silent pause, the battered Arceus left the mountain temple, about to open the passage to the origin and return to his own realm. But before he could act, an incredibly powerful force, emanating from the nearby sky, struck Arceus down, sending him crashing to the ground, sending up clouds of dust and cracking the earth. A young man in white with pale blue hair slowly emerged, accompanied by a strange-looking Pokémon. A smile crossed his lips as he gazed at Arceus, sprawled on the ground. The Pokémon behind him was a black spherical form, with a conical head and a large yellow mouth on its abdomen. Its massive body was supported by a pair of sturdy legs, its knees covered in yellow, jagged markings with 3 claws each. It bore a fierce appearance. If a researcher from the Ether Foundation were here, they would surely recognize the Pokémon before them. This was a Dark Plus Dragon-type Ultra Beast from the Ultimate Dimension, Grevo. Chapter 409, Traitors Should Be Punished. A long moment passed. Arceus struggled to his feet, his eyes filled with ferocity and fury. He stared intently at the young man and the ghoulish king not far away, his aura radiating a violent rage. "Human, damn traitor, you all deserve punishment," the young man sneered at Arceus' words, his deep eyes flickering with a fleeting sneer. Tisk. Is this Arceus, the god of creation? He's quite embarrassed. It must be hard to be betrayed by Damas, right? As a spectator who had witnessed everything firsthand, the mysterious young man looked at Arceus with amusement. Arceus was silent for a moment, as if a sore spot had been touched. His eyes were filled with sorrow and confusion, and the pent-up hatred on his face deepened. He radiated an even more intense pressure, crushing the mysterious young man. Sensing the danger the young man was in, the evil Food King bent his legs slightly and leaped in front of him, helping the mysterious young man to withstand the overwhelming force of Arceus's aura. Instantly, the evil Food King's aura collided with Arceus's, creating a counter-force, a brief stalemate. As expected of the legendary god of creation, even gravely wounded, he remained so formidable. The mysterious young man observed Arceus, silently admiring him. He knew full well that while the evil Food King was currently locked in a standoff with Arceus, it didn't mean he was a match for Arceus's strength. Had Arceus not been ambushed by Damas, Shizen, and the others, leaving him grievously wounded while unprepared, and had Arceus not yet recovered his 5 stone tablets, he wouldn't have dared to appear with the evil Food King. If I can seize this opportunity to control Arceus, I can surely help Master Sakuki conquer this world before it's too late. The mysterious young man gazed at the wary Arceus, a thought suddenly forming within him, and he couldn't help but lick his lips. With each thought, the young man's gaze towards Arceus grew more intense. As if sensing the young man's thoughts, Arceus glanced at him from the corner of his eye, glaring furiously. With a cold, low roar, he said, "Foolish. This is simply ridiculous. You dare to control me? You must be punished." Following his roar, a massive golden ball of energy once again coalesced from his forehead. He ascended into midair, launching the energy ball upwards, sending it hurtling skyward, transforming into countless volleys of light that plummeted towards the evil Food King. Punishment, light gravel. The mysterious young man couldn't help but take a deep breath. He could fully sense the terrifying impact of the attack and immediately commanded the Hoenn King, white area defense. The Hoenn King nodded. A flash of white light flashed across his massive body, and a transparent shield formed around him, barely shielding him from Arceus's wrath, mingled with the rubble of punishment. Boom, boom, boom. A series of explosions echoed, engulfing the Hoenn King and the mysterious young man in a terrifying hail of light. Billowing clouds of dust whistled past, engulfing them in a cloud of ash. Arceus's eyes glowed crimson, revealing a fierce and violent aura. He hovered above the shrouded area, searching for the mysterious young man and the gnawing king. He showed the mysterious youth the wrath of the gods, vowing to unleash the pent-up resentment and hatred within. And to show all humans and Pokémon in this world that betrayers must die and face punishment. A moment later, the smoke and dust gradually dissipated, and Arceus once again condensed his chastening pebbles. He was about to strike the mysterious youth and the gnawing king again, but when he saw the scene before him, he couldn't help but frown. All that remained was a vast crater. The rude young man and the gnawing king had vanished, as if instantly reduced to dust, leaving no trace. Arceus retracted his attack, opened a passage to the origin, and was about to return to his own dimension when his expression changed, his pupils constricted as he gazed up at the sky. The gnawing king's powerful dragon energy exploded in the sky, transforming into countless meteorites that plummeted at incredible speeds, smashing towards Arceus and striking him before he could react. This was the ultimate dragon-type move, Dragon Star Swarm. Without the support of the Dragon Slate, Dragon Star Swarm exploded against Arceus. He couldn't help but let out a scream, his face turning utterly pale. Suppressing the pain, he retaliated with a massive attack, crashing directly into the gnawing king. Driven by the terrifying force, the gnawing king fell heavily to the ground like a kite with its string cut. The mysterious young man's expression changed drastically upon seeing this. He stared at Arceus intently, his face filled with conflicted frustration. After a moment's silence, he finally sighed and gave up. Damn. He's too strong. He knew full well that the gnawing king, facing the increasingly dark Arceus, was no match for him. The best option now was to flee, to prevent Arceus from reacting and wiping them out. After the mysterious young man retrieved the ultimate ball and retrieved the evil Food King, he used the device he carried with him to open a dimensional portal. He stepped through at breakneck speed and vanished onto the land of Medina. Arceus watched them depart, filled with unspeakable hatred and rage. He unleashed a terrifying attack in the direction the mysterious young man had left, instantly piercing the dimensional barrier. Under the influence of Arceus's power, the dimensional portal the young man had left was swept by the energy wave, forcibly annihilating him within the channel. At this moment, Arceus turned to look at the originating space. He saw that the originating space's portal had been struck by the residual energy of the Dragon Star Cluster, causing the entire space to distort. A massive energy vortex was hurled back, instantly burying Arceus within it. Arceus, already battered, struggled in agony. Unwittingly, the energy vortex knocked the 6 attribute stone tablets behind him off their feet, sending them plummeting into the distorted space. Human, await my punishment, Arceus roared in hatred, feeling his body weaken and his life once again in jeopardy. Unable to search for the lost tablets, he dragged his heavy body back into the primordial realm and fell into deep sleep. Meanwhile, thousands of years later, in the ruins of the Temple of Medina, the guardians of the ruins, Sina and Kevin, had concluded a day of reconnaissance and were about to leave the basement where the chronometer resided when they noticed the planet representing Arceus' primordial realm trembling slightly. Their pupils dilated, and worry crossed their faces. This means Arceus is awakening. They exchanged glances, each seeing the solemnity in the other's eyes. Xena was silent for a moment, then suddenly raised her head, clasped her hands together in front of her chest, and in a gesture of prayer and communion, she spoke in a clear, melodious voice, "Transcend the laws of space and time, Dialga, please answer my call. I want to know Arceus's current condition." To the disappointment of Xena and Kevin, no matter how she called out to Dialga, he received no response. "Xena, what should we do now?" Kevin frowned, looking at Xena, who was equally bewildered. Xena shook her head, pondering blankly for a moment. Then, she looked up and said to Kevin, "Dialga hasn't responded. Let's tell Sharona and Professor Mustard Orchid about what's happening here and see if we can come up with another solution." In short, facing the signs of Arceus awakening, we cannot sit idly by. Kevin nodded and sighed softly. "This is the only way. I hope nothing will happen." Afterwards, the two rushed to Shentown together, hoping to tell Sharona and Dr. Mustard about the changes in the time-space instrument and their speculation about Arceus awakening, in order to find a way to resolve the crisis. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 410 Feng, are we going to meet the parents? The next morning, The new year dawned. The spatial distortion above Chang'an Mountain vanished, the dark clouds tore through the sky, and sunlight returned to the Sinnoh region. The warm sun shone, bringing life to all things. The handsome man, along with Miss Junxia from EMI City, joined forces with him to reach the entrance to Chang'an Mountain via Route 211. Following the instructions given by Lu Feng and Sharona, they reached the spear pillar atop the mountain and apprehended the listless members of Team Jinga. Seeing the matter was over, Lu Feng briefly exchanged words with the handsome man and the others before leaving Chang'an Mountain and returning to EMI City with Sharona. In EMI City, Sharona's villa. After several hours of rest, Lu Feng had gradually recovered the physical strength he had lost on Chang'an Mountain, as well as the mental strength from using his superpowers. He lazily lounging on the soft sofa, a cushioned pillow resting behind him, yawning uncontrollably. Victini, clutching the snacks Sharona had prepared, curled up on the edge of the sofa, enjoying them with Evie and Tajikus. Melota, her slender, pale legs drooping, sat on the windowsill, enjoying the warmth of the sun and humming a sweet tune. As for the other Pokémon, aside from being transported by Lu Feng to the Hirayama Gym to continue their rotation as gym trump cards, they remained in Sharona's villa courtyard, silently practicing their moves and mastering their own abilities according to his plan, understanding the power of their own types. After learning that Garchomp had reached champion strength, becoming Lu Feng's third champion Pokémon, Swampert, Bangira, and Jengar, his first Pokémon to be captured, felt even more pressure. An hour later, Lu Feng emerged from the villa and strolled into the courtyard. Looking at the Pokémon he had diligently trained, a faint smile curled his lips. After a brief moment of reflection, he paused. He walked up to Swampert, who looked puzzled. Swampert, Lu Feng stared directly at Swampert, silently removing the water essence from his backpack and handing it to him. Then, with immense anticipation, he said, "Swampert, don't let me down." Swampert stared intently at the water essence in Lu Feng's hand, his throat tightening as he swallowed hard. He could clearly sense a fatal attraction to the azure orb before him. From a mere glance, Swampert could sense the water energy within him surging with joy. Swampert stared intently at the water essence, silent for a long moment before finally making a difficult decision. He extended his massive hand, pushed back Lu Feng's offered hand, shook his head, and said, "Swampert." Lu Feng froze in surprise, seemingly unprepared for Swampert's refusal. With the help of Viridian's power, Lu Feng could understand Swampert's intentions. It wanted him to give the water essence to Red Gyarados. Lu Feng's eyes flickered deeply, and the smile on his lips widened. Gyarados' strength hasn't reached a plateau yet. I'll help it acquire the necessary items in the future, Lu Feng said, his eyes downcast as he squeezed Swampert's sturdy arm with his right hand. "You're my first partner. I hope your strength continues to improve." Recalling his arrival in the Pokémon world, Lu Feng's eyes flickered with a rare tenderness as he whispered softly. Swampert shuddered slightly at Lu Feng's words, a mixture of emotions flooding his mind. As Lu Feng's first Pokémon, Swampert had always acted as the big brother after the other Pokémon joined the team, often deliberately yielding resources to the others. As a result, even now, even after Gardevoir had reached champion level for a long time, it hadn't broken through to champion territory. Finally, after Lu Feng's persistent persuasion, Swampert accepted the water essence and successfully used it to comprehend the corresponding essence energy, rapidly increasing its strength to champion level, becoming Lu Feng's fourth champion level Pokémon. Lu Feng nodded in satisfaction and then used the training method Amrito had given him before his departure, entering a meditative state to enhance his superpower. Unlike the Sinnoh dragons, who had simply left, the three lake gods, in gratitude for Lu Feng's assistance, not only helped him improve his superpower but also gifted several of his Pokémon with numerous resources and served as instructors. If it weren't for Sharona's desire for the three lake gods to return to Lakes of Heart, Aspiration, and Wisdom to restore the ecosystems of these three remaining freshwater lakes in the Sinnoh region and prevent further deterioration, Lu Feng would have wanted the three lake gods to stay a little longer, so he could learn more about moves and techniques to further enhance the strength of his Pokémon. 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Sharona and Garchomp returned to the villa, clutching a pale blue diamond-like orb. Her face was filled with worry and hesitation as she slowly approached Lu Feng. Lu Feng stared at Sharona in surprise. After carefully examining the orb in her hands, he asked, bewildered, "Zulin, didn't you return the diamond orb to the Path City Museum? Why are you bringing it back?" Sharona gave Lu Feng a wry smile and shook her head slightly. Team Galactic attacked the Path City Museum not long ago, destroying it completely. It's still under reconstruction. The museum owner also asked me to deliver this diamond orb to Shentown and personally hand it to Professor Mustard Orb, hoping they can reveal information about Dialga and Pokia. Lu Feng nodded, a look of understanding on his face. Then, Sharona paused for a moment, then looked at Lu Feng, who hesitated for a long moment before continuing. Lu Feng, I hope you can return to Shentown with me this time. Lu Feng was stunned for a moment at Sharona's words, then immediately perked up, his gaze fixed on her intensely. Is he going back to see his parents? Lu Feng thought to himself with a slight delight. Are we leaving now? He asked nervously, a hint of nervousness between his brows. Don't we need to prepare anything else? Sharona noticed the strange expression on Lu Feng's face, then a faint blush crossed her face, as if a thought occurred to her. She quickly covered her embarrassment with her hair. She took a deep breath, trying to calm the turmoil in her heart, then shook her head and said, Zina, the guardian of Medina, wants to see me about something, most likely related to the ancestors, so, there's no need to prepare anything else, so that's how it is, I thought. Lu Feng sighed in disappointment, his expression instantly becoming weak again. Without waiting for Lu Feng to continue, Sharona led Garkump into the villa, leaving Lu Feng alone in the courtyard, sighing. The next morning, Lu Feng and Sharona left Bede City and headed east to Route 211. They crossed a large wooden bridge that spanned the valley and the stream, then leaped over the steep mountain path and reached the entrance of Chyangun Mountain again. Although many wild Pokémon appeared during their journey, they dared not approach them after sensing the presence of Melota on Lu Feng's shoulder and Victini in Sharona's arms. As for the challenges offered by some trainers along the way, Lu Feng and Sharona declined them, so they didn't waste much time on the journey. After walking for about half an hour, they finally emerged from the dark tunnel and arrived at Shentown on the east side of Chyangun Mountain. Chapter 411 Shentown History Research Institute. Xinhua Town, the oldest town in the Sinnoh region and also its smallest, is known as a town steeped in the past. Not only does it preserve Sinnoh's history and ancient ways, but the central shrine dates back to the discovery of the region. Lu Feng casually surveyed the scene before him, gazing at the lush greenery lining the town's entrance, where vibrant flowers clashed in vibrant colors, exuding a refreshing fragrance. He nodded and exclaimed, it truly is the oldest town of origin. Sharona's dark gray eyes curved into crescents, a dimple-shaped smile etched across her face, her long golden hair cascading down. She gazed at Lu Feng for a long moment, then said with satisfaction, let's go. Let's go to the Historical Research Institute first. Lu Feng nodded and followed Sharona into Xinhua Town. Driving along the streets of Xinhua Town, ancient architectural styles were evident everywhere. Various houses from the early Sinnoh era stood side by side, surrounded by lush trees, creating a sense of harmony with nature. Many Shen residents, upon seeing Sharona, greeted her with smiles. Then, looking at Lu Feng, their smiles grew even more intriguing. Lu Feng, unfazed by their expressions, nodded in greeting, causing Sharona to blush slightly. She quickly took Lu Feng's hand and led him to the Shen Historical Research Institute. Is this the Shen Historical Research Institute? Lu Feng observed the magnificent building carefully, muttering to himself with some surprise. I thought it was the same style as the buildings in town. Sharona tucked her windblown hair behind her ears and smiled at Lu Feng's words. The Shen Historical Research Institute was built a few years ago. To better preserve the ancient ruins behind the institute, they naturally chose a modern style to better protect it. Lu Feng's explanation suddenly dawned on him. Led by Sharona, the two entered the research institute, where they happened to meet Dr. Mustard Orchid's assistant. The assistant's face lit up with excitement upon seeing Sharona. Ms. Sharona, welcome back. Sharona nodded, then glanced around for a moment. Seeing no sign of Dr. Mustard Orchid, she asked curiously, isn't Grandma at the research institute today? The assistant shook her head, pointed to the back of the institute, and replied softly, Dr. Mustard Orchid is in the ruins in the backyard, apparently studying the ancient murals there. As she spoke, the assistant walked toward the ruins, as if intending to inform Dr. Mustard Orchid. Sharona, upon seeing this, quickly stopped her and handed her the diamond orb entrusted to her by the Path City Museum, the white jade orb lost by the Historical Research Institute, and the gun key found on the gun pillar. Here are the things the Bede City Museum sent me, along with the white jade orb that was recently lost at the institute. Please store them for me. I'll go to the backyard myself. The female assistant looked at the items Sharona handed her in surprise. After a moment's careful consideration, she nodded and took the valuables to Dr. Mustard Orchid's office, where they were carefully stored. Then, Sharona withdrew her gaze and continued toward the institute's backyard. Lu Feng followed closely behind her, his eyes scanning the interior and the many exhibited artifacts with interest. A few minutes later, Lu Feng and Sharona arrived at the entrance to the ruins in the backyard. They saw ancient stone tablets of various sizes and dilapidated buildings. In the center of the ruins stood a cracked temple, weathered by time. The Shentown Historical Research Institute was established to preserve and explore the murals and ancient legends preserved within this ruin. Sharona, her beautiful eyes fixed on the ruins before her, softly gave Lu Feng a brief introduction. Palkia's white jade orb was discovered within this ruin. Legends of Akino, Yuxi, and Enrido are also found within, and even portraits of Dialga and Palkia can be seen. Unfortunately, the last attack by Team Galactic caused considerable damage to the ruins, causing the information on some of the stone tablets and murals to disappear. Sharona's face was filled with regret and sorrow at the destruction of the ancient mythological records and legends. At this moment, Dr. Mustard Orchid, who had been surveying the ruins temple, seemed to have overheard Lu Feng and Sharona's conversation and hurried out. The bells behind her rang crisply as she moved. Zulin, Dr. Mustard Orchid called softly, her eyes gazing at Sharona with tenderness. Sharona looked at Dr. Mustard Orchid, a smile playing on her lips. She quickly walked over to her, hugged her like a little girl, and said in a gentle, melodious voice, "Grandma, I'm back. You're already the Sinnoh champion, yet you're still acting like a child. I can't help you." Dr. Mustard Orchid was stunned, unable to resist stroking Sharona's golden hair. Then, she shifted her gaze to Lu Feng, scrutinizing him with a hawk's sharp eyes. Lu Feng fidgeted, his entire body tensing. "Young man, you are Lu Feng, right?" Dr. Mustard Orchid asked casually, her eyes fixed on him. Lu Feng's face flushed slightly, he nodded mechanically, and stammered, "Grandma, oh no. It's Dr. Mustard Orchid, I am Lu Feng this time. Sorry to bother you." When Dr. Mustard Orchid heard Lu Feng's address to her, her eyes instantly became unfriendly, and she looked at him vigilantly, fearing that if she was not careful, the cabbage she raised at home would be abducted away. Upon hearing Lu Feng's words, Sharona couldn't help but glance back at him. Noticing his predicament, she burst into laughter and addressed Dr. Mustard Orchid, "Grandma, I've recovered the diamond orb from Bede City and the white jade orb that was lost at the Research Institute not long ago. This was all thanks to Lu Feng's help. Back at Chang'an Mountain, he even gave me the Earth Cloud and Tornado Cloud to protect me from Palkia and Dialga." Dr. Mustard Orchid glanced at Lu Feng in surprise. The wariness in his eyes gradually softened, and he nodded. "Thanks to your help, indeed." Noticing Dr. Mustard Orchid's attitude soften, Lu Feng wiped the sweat from his cheek and breathed a sigh of relief. But before he could relax for long, Dr. Mustard Orchid's voice rang out again, reaching his ears and startling Lu Feng. "But even so, I won't marry Huelin to you easily." "Grandma, what are you talking about?" Sharona's pretty face turned red unnaturally, and she said with some anger. Dr. Mustard Orchid shook her head and directly pulled Sharona to the office to prepare to study the matter of the pearl. Lu Feng looked at the backs of the two people walking away. He had not come back to his senses at this moment, and his mind was still repeating what Dr. Mustard Orchid had just said. Although Dr. Mustard Orchid said it in a stern tone, Lu Feng did not feel frustrated at all, but showed a high morale. After all, Dr. Mustard Orchid did not directly oppose the relationship between him and Sharona, but it was just a few more tests. What else is there for Lu Feng to be dissatisfied with? After a while, Lu Feng gradually recovered and hurriedly chased in the direction the two left. Chapter 412 Arceus and Overcoming Time and Space. In a blink of an eye, 3 hours had passed. Inside the Institute of History's office, Dr. Mustard Orchid watched Lu Feng bustling about, his eagerness to help, and her expression softened. He had even volunteered to decipher some ancient texts, translating a wealth of mythological information into ancient languages. Dr. Mustard Orchid remained silent. Sharona's beautiful eyes flickered as she gazed at Lu Feng with a smile, unable to resist a smirk. As the clock neared noon, Dr. Mustard Orchid glanced at the wall clock. As if struck by a thought, she suddenly put down the diamond bead in her hand, turned to Sharona and Lu Feng, and said, "Zulin, Sheena should have arrived in Shentown. Take Lu Feng with you. I won't keep you here." Sharona looked at Dr. Mustard Orchid and nodded silently. After a brief exchange, he turned and left. Lu Feng, with an embarrassed expression on his face, said goodbye to Dr. Mustard Orchid and quickly caught up with Sharona, following her closely out of the Institute of History. Dr. Mustard Orchid watched the two departing figures, a smile suddenly breaking out on her once stoic face. She looked at the group photo on the table, wondering what she was thinking. Meanwhile, Sharona and Lu Feng walked out of the History Institute and headed towards Route 210 on the east side of Shentown. After walking for a while, Lu Feng couldn't help but glance back at the History Institute, then silently breathed a sigh of relief. Beads of sweat continued to flow from his forehead, dripping down his cheeks and onto the ground. Sharona noticed that Lu Feng looked a little disheveled at this moment, the corners of his mouth curved like a perfect crescent moon, and his rosy face revealed a hint of charm. Isn't what just happened scary enough? You don't really need to take Grandma's words seriously? Hearing Sharona's words, Lu Feng's brows furrowed, and he shook his head, suddenly feeling somewhat displeased. Putting on a righteous air, he looked at Sharona seriously and said, No. We still have to listen to our elders, especially Grandma. Grandma, Sharona said coldly, looking at Lu Feng with a half-smile. Lu Feng looked directly at Sharona and waved his hand with a relaxed expression. Isn't that a respectful title for an elderly person? Besides, I think this is bound to happen sooner or later, he muttered, slowly lowering his head, his face filled with shamelessness. Sharona's gray-black eyes trembled slightly as she stared at Lu Feng for a long moment. Suddenly, the corners of her small mouth curled up into a very touching smile. She ignored Lu Feng and continued walking forward, feeling embarrassed. A moment later, Lu Feng and Sharona arrived at the eastern entrance to Shentown, connecting to Route 210. A beautiful young woman, dressed in a Lolita style and with twin buns and a similarly blonde hair color, slightly darker than Sharona's, stood beneath a large tree, a smile of surprise in her eyes. Perhaps noticing Sharona and Lu Feng, the young woman walked straight towards them. Sharona, sorry to have kept you waiting, Sharona, her hair cascading to her waist, said gently. Sharona shook her head, smiling before a look of worry. I've just arrived in Shentown, too, and I came to see you this time, hoping for your help, she said, then shifted her gaze to Lu Feng. This must be Mr. Lu Feng, right? Hello, Miss Sharona, Lu Feng replied with a faint smile. Hoenn nodded, clasping her hands into fists before her chest and closing her eyes. The superpower within her body surged and swirled, as if confirming something. A minute later, she slowly opened her eyes and glanced at Lu Feng with a complex expression. Mr. Lu Feng, you are indeed a person with superpowers. Lu Feng simply smiled and said nothing. Hoenn checked her watch and said to the two of them, It's getting late. Let's go to my house first. We can talk later if you have anything to say. Then, led by Hoenn, the group arrived at her home in Shentown. Hoenn first brought 3 cups of hot tea, then, with a hint of doubt, looked at Hoenn and asked, By the way, Hoenn, did you encounter any problems this time? Hoenn took a sip of her tea, a wry smile on her face, but did not directly answer. Zulin, do you remember our clan's mission in Origins? Sharona pondered for a moment, then replied thoughtfully, So, your visit to Shentown is actually related to Arceus? Yes, Sharona nodded solemnly, her expression a mixture of anticipation and trepidation. Not long ago, Cobbin and I used the chronometer to detect signs of Arceus's imminent awakening. Before coming to Shentown, I used the power of Supercross to call Dialga, intending to inquire about Arceus. I don't know what happened, but Dialga didn't respond. Hearing this, Lu Feng couldn't help but curl his lips, silently grumbling. I imagine Dialga is still recovering from his injuries, most likely in a deep sleep. It would be truly strange if he could still respond to your call. After all, first, the Red Sun Control consumed most of its energy to create the new universe, and then was defeated by Kyurem, Reshiram, and Giratina. Even Arceus might not be able to bear it, let alone Dialga. Is Arceus about to awaken? Sharona was silent for a moment, a heavy look creeping over her previously calm face. As a member of the Temple clan, she naturally knew about the affairs of Damas and Arceus, and a sense of worry washed over her. She nodded, then sighed and said, According to my and Coben's estimates, Arceus will most likely awaken in a year. However, if other factors interfere with time and space, it could happen sooner than expected. I also know that my ancestors treated Arceus so harshly that Arceus no longer trusts humans. To appease his wrath, Coben and I will do our best to beg for his forgiveness. However, we're not sure Arceus will forgive our ancestors' mistakes. I worry that he will vent his anger on the entire Sinnoh region." Upon hearing this, Sharona and Lu Feng remained silent for a long time, their brows furrowed. Although what Hoenn said was just a guess, no one could fathom the mind of an enraged Arceus. Who could guarantee that Arceus wouldn't act according to Hoenn's best guess? There's a saying, you can always trust the power of a god, but never trust his mercy. Lu Feng's heart grew even heavier at the thought. "I know this request is a bit abrupt, but I still hope for your help," Hoenn said, noticing the two of them were silent and lost in thought for a long time. Lu Feng pondered for a moment, then nodded, accepting Hoenn's request. After all, family matters knew their own business. From the moment he obtained the attribute tablet, he was bound to be involved with Arceus. And to maintain the stability of the Sinnoh region, Sharona would inevitably intervene. He couldn't just sit back and watch, could he? At that moment, as if the system knew Lu Feng's choice, it immediately issued a new task. Ding. Congratulations to the host for receiving the legendary quest, Arceus and the Transcendence of Space and Time. Time frame, complete before Medina's destruction. Description, Arceus, the god of creation, determined to punish Medina for his past betrayal and recover the 18 stone tablets crucial to his survival. To prevent the Sinnoh region from being vengeful, the host is requested to appease his wrath. Reward, temporary use of all of Arceus stone tablets. Penalty for failure, Arceus's relentless pursuit. Lu Feng glanced at the system's quest indifferently, accepting it calmly, as if it had been expected, without much surprise at all. After a brief discussion among the three, they decided to travel to Medina first to assess the situation and then make preparations. Unfortunately, just before leaving, Sharona received a message from Suzerain Island, requiring her to return to Alliance headquarters to address the incident involving the Spear Pillar and Team Galactic a few days ago. Lu Feng and Sharona expressed deep regret and had no choice but to allow her to return to Alliance headquarters. Chapter 413 The Precious Gem of Life is Broken. January 3rd, Friday. The sun was shining brightly, the sky clear and blue. Reshiram's pristine white wings swept across the sky, leaving a trail of pure white in the azure air before slowly descending to the open space in front of the ruined Medina temple. The temple still stood majestically, its walls etched with age and mottled, its broken pillars still hinting at its former splendor. The remaining fragments revealed just how magnificent the temple had once been. Is this the temple dedicated to Arceus for thousands of years? Lu Feng lowered his eyes, carefully observing the temple before him, and couldn't help but sigh. It's hard to imagine how magnificent it must have been in its original state. Hearing this, Sina's face darkened slightly, and then she said in a low voice, "Mr. Lu Feng, please follow me." The chronosphere is in the temple's basement. Lu Feng nodded, a faint smile playing on his face. He led Rodham, Victini, and Melota, and followed Sina to the basement of the ruins temple. Soon, they arrived at the basement. Kevin was frowning, his eyes filled with worry as he observed the chronosphere before him, his expression solemn. As if sensing someone approaching, Kevin slowly raised his head, appearing drowsy. With dark circles under his eyes, he said tiredly, "Zina, you're finally back." The space-time anomalies detected by the time-space device have been increasing in frequency these days. When Zina heard what Kevin said, her heart sank. She looked at him worriedly and muttered to herself, "So, Arceus's awakening is getting closer and closer." Kevin nodded grimly, as if a heavy pressure was weighing on his shoulders. He stood there without saying a word. Lu Feng studied the time-space device carefully, watching the spheres representing the space of Dialga, Palkia, Giratina, and Arceus. The trajectories were constantly changing, and he couldn't help but ask, "Mr. Kevin, according to your guess, when is Arceus expected to awaken?" "Huh? Who is this?" Kevin subconsciously glanced at Lu Feng after hearing his words, and only then realized that Zina had not returned alone. Seeing that Kevin had noticed Lu Feng, Hoenn quickly introduced him. "Kevin, this is Mr. Lu Feng. He's a friend of Sharona's, a very capable trainer, and a user with superpowers. He's come to Medina primarily to help us." Kevin was filled with respect upon hearing Hoenn's introduction. "Mr. Lu Feng, thank you very much for your assistance. Based on my observations and speculation over the past few days, Arceus' awakening is only 6 months away, at most. However, the changes in time and space haven't yet concluded, and this time frame is likely to be brought forward. I think we should prepare as soon as possible." As Cobbin finished speaking, Lu Feng and Hoenn fell silent. The entire basement fell into deathly silence. For an unknown amount of time, Lu Feng gradually regained his composure, glanced at Hoenn and Cobbin, and spoke directly, breaking the oppressive atmosphere. "Miss Hoenn, I once heard Hoenn say that the affairs of Midna are related to the Gem of Life." Hoenn and Cobbin looked at each other. She looked at Lu Feng with complicated eyes and said, "It is indeed related to the Gem of Life. It can be said that Midden has declined from desolation to prosperity, and now is all due to the Gem of Life. My ancestor Damis once rescued Arceus, and used the Gem of Life given by Arceus to turn the originally desolate Midna into fertile land. But driven by greed, Damis was afraid that Midna would lose the Gem of Life and become a barren land again, so when the Date agreed with Arceus to return the Gem of Life, he led many Pokémon to attack Arceus. In the end, Midna was destroyed by the angry Arceus and evolved into what it is today." After Hoenn finished speaking, she turned around and left the basement silently. A few minutes later, she returned to the basement with a closed lotus tray in her hand. "This is the Life Jade, the source of Arceus' life." Zinna held the lotus pedestal in her hands and slowly activated the mechanism on it. The closed lotus pedestal suddenly opened, revealing the Life Jade before Lu Feng. Lu Feng looked at the Life Jade without revealing much emotion, as if he were looking at an ordinary object. Zinna and Cobbin noticed Lu Feng's expression, noticing the purity in his eyes. They couldn't help but sigh in admiration, yet secretly blamed their ancestors for their actions. Zinna's eyes fell on the Life Jade, a complex feeling filling her heart with sighs. After a brief pause, she continued, "Cobbin and I have decided to return the Jade when Arceus awakens, hoping to appease his wrath, but in case of any unforeseen circumstances, Mr. Lu Feng, please lend us a hand." Lu Feng nodded, then shook his head, full of hesitation and confusion. Zinna and Cobbin observed Lu Feng's expression, somewhat unsure of what he meant. "Mr. Lu Feng, do you have any concerns?" Cobbin said. Lu Feng turned to look at Cobbin, pointed at the life orb held in Hoenn's hands, and replied meaningfully, "If Miss Hoenn returns this life orb to Arceus, I think he will be even more furious." "Mr. Lu Feng, what do you mean by that?" Hoenn was stunned at first, then became anxious, and hurriedly asked Lu Feng. Hoenn knew that a trainer like Lu Feng would never say such a thing without reason. He must have discovered something wrong. As soon as she thought of this, she suddenly had a bad feeling. Sure enough, it was true. Lu Feng pondered silently for a moment, then looked directly at Hoenn and Cobbin, and explained in a quiet tone, "I have come into contact with other Arceus stone tablets and know the strangeness of these attribute stone tablets, but if I may be frank, the life orb in Miss Hoenn's hands feels more like a fake than a real life orb." "What?" When Zinna and Cobbin heard this, they seemed to be struck by lightning, their faces full of disbelief. Lu Feng knew that this result was hard to accept, but with the help of the power of super control, he had confirmed that this life gem had long been replaced by Damis controlled by Kizan, just like the trajectory in the original book. It can be said that the life gem that has been treasured by Zinna and Cobbin's ancestors until now, hoping to calm Arceus's anger, has been fake from the beginning to the end. After a moment, Zinna and Cobbin gradually came back to their senses, forced themselves to cheer up, tried to squeeze out a smile, and stared at Lu Feng. "Mr. Lu Feng, could it be that you are wrong? This life gem has never left the temple, how could it be fake?" Lu Feng shook his head and sighed. He did not give an answer, but walked directly to Zinna, stretched out his right hand and pressed hard on the life gem. The next moment, under the gaze of the three people, the life gem emitting a vibrant green light seemed to be unable to withstand Lu Feng's strength and directly shattered into several pieces of different sizes. Lying quietly on the tray, Cobbin and Zinna witnessed all this with their own eyes, and felt that the perseverance in their hearts collapsed at this moment. Their faces turned pale in an instant, as if they were ashes without a trace of blood. Chapter 414 5 Attribute Slates. Time flew by, and before they knew it, a long time had passed. Zinna and Cobbin's throats tightened. They still couldn't believe the life orb had been shattered, and they stood there in despair. Zinna, in particular, had always hoped to return the life orb to appease Arceus' wrath and atone for the sins of her ancestors. After witnessing all this, despair filled her heart. "Why is this happening?" Zinna cried, her face darkening. "Has everything we've been protecting been in vain?" Cobbin, though also dejected, noticed Zinna's condition and suppressed his panic and fear, silently hugging her tightly. Lu Feng remained silent, simply watching the two of them, like a statue, allowing them time to vent. He knew perfectly well that what Sina and Kevin needed right now wasn't comfort, but a chance to recover after their faith had been shattered. Therefore, he made no further move. Half an hour later, Sina's sobs gradually subsided, and her composure slowly returned. After noticing Sina's composure, Kevin silently released his hands and retreated to her side without a word. Mr. Lu Feng, I'm so sorry. I lost my composure just now. Sina gently wiped the tears from her eyes reddening as she looked at Lu Feng, a look that made her seem even more pitiful. Thank you so much for reminding us. If you hadn't reminded us in time, the consequences would have been unimaginable. If Arceus had awakened and seen the life stone, Lu Feng gently shook his head and said gently, Miss Sina, I understand your feelings. At this moment, Kevin's face was filled with bitterness. He looked at Lu Feng and Sina with a dull look, and asked listlessly, what should we do now? The life stone is lost, and Arceus's awakening is approaching. How should we appease his wrath? Sina lowered her head even lower at this, her eyes filled with confusion and grayness, as if all light had suddenly been drained away. The most urgent task is naturally to recover the life jade, Lu Feng answered firmly. But after so long, can we still find the life jade? Kevin couldn't help but ask the crucial question, his brow furrowing ever deeper. Lu Feng surveyed the basement, using his wave god power to search. After glimpsing an ancient scepter and sensing the terrifying energy hidden within it, he said meaningfully, of course. You know, the life jade has never left the temple. This, Sina and Kevin couldn't help but smack their lips in disbelief. Sina was momentarily stunned, then looked at Lu Feng with eyes filled with anticipation and hope. She cautiously asked, Mr. Lu Feng, do you know where the life jade is? Kevin said nothing, but his gaze remained fixed on Lu Feng, his breathing becoming increasingly rapid. When Lu Feng nodded gently, it was as if all the strength had suddenly drained from them, and they both threatened to collapse. Lu Feng, observing the uneasy expressions of Sina and Kevin, wasted no time and headed directly towards a point in the basement. He slowly picked up the dusty scepter and returned to the two. Sina and Kevin stared at Lu Feng in confusion, wondering what his intention was in removing the scepter of Demis. Lu Feng examined the scepter carefully for a moment, then found its mechanism. With a gentle press of his right thumb, the round beads on the top of the scepter spread out like a lotus blossom. A luminous, life-giving gem appeared before everyone, captivating them all. At that moment, the basement fell into deathly silence. About 3 minutes later, Sina recovered from her trance. She gazed at the life-giving gem before her, her expression uncertain. She stumbled over to Lu Feng and reached out to touch it, as if to verify whether it was an illusion or reality. This is the real life stone. Feeling the warmth in her hand, and the distinct aura of Arceus, Sina burst into tears of joy. It's always been in the temple, but we never discovered it. Hearing Sina's words, Kevin finally breathed a sigh of relief. The series of twists and turns that had just occurred had left him feeling incredibly restless, like a string on the verge of breaking. Now, he could finally relax. He relaxed for a moment, then walked over to Lu Feng and bowed deeply. Mr. Lu Feng, thank you so much for helping us recover the life stone. Lu Feng waved his hand, pondered for a moment, and then said sheepishly, Ms. Sina, Mr. Kevin, I have a humble request. I wonder if you could grant it. Sina and Kevin's expressions faded, their expressions becoming serious and solemn. They were naturally filled with gratitude for Lu Feng's help in recovering the life stone. Mr. Lu Feng, please go ahead. As long as we can do it, we will not postpone it. Upon hearing this, Lu Feng's eyes flashed with cunning, and he rubbed his hands and said embarrassedly, I hope to borrow the life gem temporarily to help my Pokémon improve their strength. Kevin and Hoenn, the two looked at each other speechlessly, both a little confused. They never expected that Lu Feng's request would be to borrow the life gem. For a moment, they didn't know what to do, and they were directly caught in a dilemma. Lu Feng did not rush them, just waiting quietly. After seeing the dilemma on their faces, he added, I will return the life gem when Arceus awakens, and work with you to calm his wrath. I still have Arceus's other stone tablets with me, and I believe he will never give them up, Lu Feng said humorously. Hearing this, Hoenn and Kevin recalled Lu Feng's recent assistance. After a brief exchange of glances, they silently nodded, agreeing to Lu Feng's request. Seeing Hoenn and Kevin agree, Lu Feng finally let go of his previously held grudge and breathed a sigh of relief. The little one's strength will continue to improve in the short term, Lu Feng thought. Hopefully, We can all reach champion level strength before Arceus awakens. Then, Hoenn reluctantly handed the life orb to Lu Feng, a complex expression on her face. Lu Feng carefully took it and, using his transcendence power, transformed the life orb into 5 attribute slates: ground, water, grass, lightning, and dragon. He carefully placed them back in his backpack, alongside the psychic, fighting, fire, ice, flying, and ghost slates. Hoenn's pupils constricted slightly at this, and she hesitated to speak, but ultimately remained silent, only sighing softly. 3 days later, after discussing the plan with SYNOPSIS and adding each other's contact information, Lu Feng left Medina and asked Rodham to continue applying for the World Championship Challenge and began his own journey to level up. Chapter 415, Meeting Xiaozi and his trio again. January 10th, Friday. Sinar region, outside Iron Island, in an open space. After several days of continuous challenges, Lu Feng's current score had reached 1,234th in the Pokeball rank. Now, witnessed by Ariel Rodham, sent by the World Championship Organizing Committee, Lu Feng faced Rob, ranked 1022nd in the Pokeball rank. As Ariel Rodham announced the start of the match, Lu Feng's Eevee and Rob's Shrimp moved simultaneously. Shrimp raised its massive claw on its right arm, compressing and absorbing a vast amount of water energy, and unleashed a series of powerful water cannonballs at the Eevee. The water cannonballs swiftly pierced through the Eevee's body, exploding instantly, sending powerful water energy splattering everywhere. Rob, watching this, was about to burst out laughing, believing he had defeated another opponent. But before he could utter a word, the Eevee, struck by the water cannonball, began to blur and fade, seemingly fading into indistinct form. It was a shadow left behind from nowhere, and Rob felt as if he were choking, his face flushing crimson. Lu Feng glanced at him faintly, a faint smile playing on his lips. The cannon shrimp watched the Eevee's afterimage fade, its gaze growing sharper. It frantically searched for a moment, then carefully scanned its surroundings, searching for the Eevee's whereabouts, trying to locate the vanished Eevee. Just then, a swift flash of light flashed before the cannon shrimp's eyes. Carrying with it a powerful impact and the full force of the Eevee, it sent the cannon shrimp flying, slamming hard to the ground and knocking it unconscious. Rob stared at the scene in disbelief, as if he had seen a ghost. He rubbed his eyes vigorously, staring at the Eevee standing proudly on the battlefield, lost in thought for a long moment. He had never imagined that his cannonball would be defeated so easily. He had just returned from training with a cannonball from the wave messenger, Hoenn, and before he could even unleash his unique wave power, he'd already lost. This Eevee is a monster, Robert thought. It wasn't until Rodham Ariel confirmed that the cannonball had lost its combat capability, and that Lu Feng had won the World Championship, that Robert slowly came to his senses. He looked at Lu Feng with a complicated expression and sighed silently. Upon hearing Rodham Ariel's announcement, the Eevee's face lit up with even greater pride. It quickly turned on its 4 short legs and ran over to Lu Feng, scrambling up his arm and onto his shoulder, before settling down comfortably. Lu Feng glanced at his current ranking and, seeing that he had reached Pokeball 1010, quickly said to Rodham, "Rodham, keep applying for matches for me. Ideally, matches that will allow me to advance directly to Ultra Ball." Rodham quickly responded, quickly entering the World Championship interface and challenging the World Championship players ranked ahead of Lu Feng. Shortly thereafter, Marie, ranked Pokeball 1007, accepted Lu Feng's match request and set a date for Spiketown in the Galar region 5 days later. After confirming the current information, Rodham quickly flew over to Lu Feng and reminded him, "Lu Feng, Marie from the Galar region has accepted your challenge. The date and location are set for Spiketown in 5 days. As long as you win the next match, you'll have enough points to advance to Ultra Ball, Latam, Galar Spiketown." Lu Feng nodded in surprise, muttering to himself, "I understand." Lu Feng then boarded the ferry back to Water City, accompanied by Rodham and Victini, who had just absorbed victory energy and was somewhat reluctant to move. He glanced at the 2 Pokémon on his shoulders and felt a sudden ache. He was thankful that Melota had returned to the ancient Pokéball, otherwise Lu Feng would have been in for a headache. An hour and a half later, the ferry returned to the Water City docks and slowly docked in the canal. Lu Feng, along with Rodham and the other Pokémon, left the ferry and headed for Water City. He checked his watch and saw that darkness was approaching. He gave up the idea of leaving Water City and headed instead for the Water City Pokémon Center, planning to stay overnight before heading to the Galar region early the next morning. Before Lu Feng had gotten far, he heard a familiar voice behind him. He stopped and slowly turned, searching for the source. He saw Satoshi and his friends, whom he hadn't seen in a while, running towards him from the Water City Library. A moment later, they were right in front of him. "Lu Feng, we meet again." Xiaozi looked at Lu Feng with fighting spirit, his eyes blazing with fighting spirit. Pikachu, perched on Xiaozi's shoulder, waved to Lu Feng and the Eevee on his shoulder. Eevee tilted its head and softly chirped in response to Pikachu. As for Xiaogang, he smiled faintly, his eyes narrowed, and nodded at Lu Feng. Lu Feng looked at the pair with some surprise, his expression slightly dazed, before nodding and smiling. Xiaogang, I didn't expect to see you here. This lady should be your teammate, right?" Lu Feng paused, shifting his gaze to Xiaoguang, who was standing beside Xiaozi, and asked meaningfully. Thinking of Xiaozi's changing female protagonists every time he arrived at a new map, Lu Feng couldn't help but secretly sneer. The female protagonists are so constantly changing, but Team Rocket is so permanent. "Xiaozi, your path is getting narrow." Xiaoguang nodded, looking at Lu Feng shyly. "Mr. Lu Feng, I'm Xiaoguang. I'm traveling with Xiaozi and Xiaogang, aiming to become a Pokémon master." Lu Feng smiled and politely greeted him. Meanwhile, Xiaozi displayed his 5 badges and challenged Lu Feng again. Lu Feng simply shook his head and postponed the match to the Lily of the Valley tournament. This instantly extinguished Xiaozi's fighting spirit, leaving him with a look of disappointment. Then, after a brief conversation with Xiaozi and the others, Lu Feng learned that Xiaozi had won the KIO tournament again. Although he only tied for first place with Xia, he had broken the previous historical trajectory, advancing dramatically from the quarterfinals of the KIO tournament to the championship. This made him take a closer look at Xiaozi. Xiaogang, noticing the surprise and confusion on Lu Feng's face, couldn't help but explain. Lu Feng then began to understand that Xiaozi's victory was largely due to his training and honed combat awareness during this period. Lu Feng couldn't help but sigh inwardly. No wonder Xiaozi was able to develop a skill like Retaliation Shield in the Sinnoh region. It turned out to be a sign from the KIO tournament. Lu Feng pondered for a moment, then smiled and congratulated Xiaozi. "Xiaozi, congratulations on winning another regional tournament." Xiaozi scratched his head sheepishly, then said ambitiously, "Lu Feng, at this Lily of the Valley tournament, Pikachu and I will show you the fruits of our travels. We will definitely win the Lily of the Valley tournament." Xiaogang and Xiaoguang looked at Xiaozi's enthusiasm, sighed, and let out a helpless expression. "In that case, let's wait and see." Lu Feng's eyes flickered slightly, his expression filled with anticipation. "I wonder if Xiaozi will still have that fighting spirit after running into the legendary Beast Man," Lu Feng thought silently. Then, the group headed towards the Pokémon Center together, staying at the Water City Pokémon Center that night. Chapter 416, Nightmare Strikes, New Moon Arrives. That night, the sky was hazy. The once bright moon shone across Water City, washing away the bustle of the city like flowing water. Lu Feng, Xiaozi, and their companions were temporarily staying at the Pokémon Center. The moonlight from outside quietly crept onto the windowsill, reflecting their sleeping faces in the pale moonlight. As the night deepened, a cold wind blew, lowering the temperature throughout Water City. At some unknown moment, dense dark clouds rose, enveloping Water City, instantly obscuring the brilliance of the crescent moon and casting a dark and gloomy shadow over the city sky. A shadowy black light flashed and disappeared, hidden in the swirling fog. Unbeknownst to anyone, it stood on the apex of the Water City Library, a nightmare in the night, overlooking the entire Water City. It resembled an hourglass, its body a pitch black, chaotic mess. Its eyes were a brilliant blue, and most of its face was covered in long, flowing white hair. A red, jagged object surrounded its neck, and a long, tattered black cloth hung from each shoulder. Its entire body was shrouded in a thick, black mist. This was the mythical Pokémon of the Sinnoh region, Darkrai, known as the Nightmare God. Darkrai's blue eyes flickered slightly as he gazed upon the utterly silent Watervine City. A look of struggle and pain crossed his face, as if he were forcibly suppressing something. Time ticked by, and in the blink of an eye, half an hour had passed. Darkrai groaned, unable to bear the pressure of his body any longer. The black mist that had enveloped him uncontrollably poured out, quickly spreading across Watervane City, enveloping the entire city. A nightmare ensued. Soon, the residents and tourists of Watervane City were engulfed in a nightmare. Their deepest fears surfaced, causing every sleeping Watervane creature to furrow their brows unconsciously. Beads of sweat, the size of beans, streamed down their cheeks, soaking their pillows. At the Watervane Pokémon Center, the pitch-black nightmare transformed into a shadowy figure, sliding through the gap in the windowsill and entering the room of Feng and the others. It paused briefly before emanating several energy mists of varying sizes, enveloping them. Under the influence of the nightmare, Ozzy and the others' expressions shifted constantly, flashing through emotions of fear, panic, terror, and struggle. Their closed eyes trembled slightly, as if they were facing their deepest nightmares. Hidden within Feng's shadow, Machado sensed the sudden onset of the nightmare's power and slowly emerged from the shadows. His orange-yellow eyes, blazing like flames, gazed toward the Watervane City Library, a thoughtful expression on his face. A moment later, Machado was about to awaken Feng, to rouse him from his nightmare. But before it could get close, a fleeting flash of iridescent and silver light appeared in Feng's jacket pocket, emitting a scorching heat and icy chill, constantly resisting the nightmare's power. The iridescent light of the rainbow feather and the silver light of the silver feather intertwined and shimmered. While not as powerful as the crescent moon feather in suppressing nightmares, it did ease Feng's tension, and he slowly calmed down. As if sensing something, his body trembled slightly, his tightly closed eyes trembling, and he hummed an unknown tune softly, as if on the verge of awakening. Machado's eyes flickered at this, and he paused expressionlessly, sinking back into the shadows, ignoring the rest of the situation. Meanwhile, on Full Moon Island, not far from Shumei City, a new moon suddenly appeared in the sky, unlike the bright moon hanging high above. The newly emerged crescent moon was surrounded by shimmering particles, a bright, soft halo cascading down onto the earth, dispelling the nightmare that had obscured the sky. As the halo faded, a Pokémon emerged, its head adorned with yellow crescents, its back a pale blue with a yellow base. Pink, ringed wings extended from its sides and back, and dark pink claws clasped against its chest. Its feathers, shimmering with light, soared effortlessly through the sky, like the embodiment of the crescent moon. This was Cresselia, a psychic-type legendary Pokémon, known as the Goddess of Dreams. Cresselia's pink eyes fixed on the direction of Watervane City, a faint trace of anger crossing her face, as if she had discovered something displeasing. It soared swiftly through the night sky, its gauzy wings emitting shimmering particles, adding a touch of starlight to the pitch-black night. About 10 minutes later, Cresselia flew from Full Moon Island and landed in midair not far from the Watervane City Library. Her body hovered, radiating a unique energy aura, dispelling the nightmare force enveloping Watervane City. In an instant, the Watervane City sky was abruptly split into two distinct landscapes. One side, a swirling black fog engulfed the night sky, while the other, a bright moonlight shone brightly across the earth. At this moment, Cresselia and Darkrai confronted each other. Their expressions were filled with sternness, as they silently remained suspended in midair, staring at their opponents without a word. As the mist surrounding Darkrai continued to spread, the nightmare continued to linger in the dreams of countless beings, bringing strangeness and fear to all humans and Pokémon. Cresselia could no longer sit still. Her pink psychic power instantly erupted, transforming into physical heart blade. Like a sharp blade, she aimed at Darkrai nearby and slashed. Psychic blade. Darkrai's face was heavy with sorrow, his pure blue eyes gleaming. He slowly raised his three-clawed black arm and rapidly gathered a terrifying black nightmare force, plunging the surrounding landscape into a world of darkness that continued to spread. Dark hole. Instantly, a slight vibration resounded, and the power of the psychic blade was swallowed by the dark hole. The profound dark force surged, enveloping Cresselia in a matter of moments and continuously corroding her. Cresselia looked at Darkrai gravely, then hummed softly. The glittering particles around her body grew brighter, dancing beautifully in the sky, illuminating the bright moon in the night sky. Crescent moon dance. Instantly, Cresselia gradually recovered, and under the influence of the crescent moon dance, her strength grew even stronger, and she attacked Darkrai once again. The two Pokémon rushed towards each other at incredible speed, eventually meeting atop an ancient tree. A fierce clash erupted, showering the surroundings with countless energies, creating billowing mists and shimmering lights. Feng was awakened by the sound of a collision outside his window. He frowned, opened his sleepy eyes, and wiped the sweat from his face. Then, Glancing at Satoshi and the others, still reeling from their nightmares, he tiptoed to the window. He happened to witness Darkrai and Cresselia engaged in a fierce battle under the moonlight above Waterborne City. Watching the scene before him, Lu Feng's mouth twitched, veins bulging in his face, as if filled with pent-up anger and resentment, his eyes filled with rage and resentment. Lu Feng, I was wondering why it was so noisy so late at night. It turns out you two little brats are fighting. Can't you let me sleep, then? Lu Feng fell silent as he watched the battle between Darkrai and Cresselia continue, with no sign of a quick end. Judging by the energy fluctuations emanating from the surroundings, these were merely two Pokémon whose power wasn't even close to legendary. Cresselia was likely considerably stronger than Darkrai, but not overwhelmingly so. After all, what could Cresselia, who in the original story was ripped from the sky by the three true protagonists' nets, possibly hold? He pondered silently for a moment, then suddenly raised his head and released his Gardevoir and Jengar, pointing them directly at Cresselia and Darkrai in the sky. The meaning was self-evident. Gardevoir and Jengar nodded, dashing from the windowsill and swiftly closing in on the battle. While Cresselia and Darkrai were unaware, they each unleashed a terrifying attack. The next moment, a loud roar sounded in the night sky. Cresselia and Darkrai were unable to dodge and fell straight from the sky, hitting the ground hard. The ground was covered with smoke and dust, and the dust filled the void. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 417 Crescent Moon Feather. A long time passed. The smoke gradually dissipated, and the air grew fresher under the moonlight. Darkrai and Cresselia stood up simultaneously, each hovering low in the sky. They looked warily in the direction of the attack, their expressions grave. A moment later, Gardevoir and Jengar emerged from the shadowy trees, their faces filled with cold glare, their eyes brimming with fury. Darkrai and Cresselia fell silent, staring at Gardevoir and Jengar in bewilderment, unsure of their attack. Cresselia uttered a soft moan, shimmering particles of light emanating from her body, bathing her in a halo of light. With a holy and otherworldly aura, she questioned Gardevoir and Jengar. Darkrai remained silent, maintaining his aloof demeanor, watching them with a stern expression. He slowly retracted his slender legs, remaining ever vigilant within the black mist. Gardevoir said in a low voice, its blue hair gleaming in the moonlight, adding a touch of allure and allure. Coo. It hid itself in the shadows, dodging Gardevoir's terrifying attack, but just as it emerged from another shadow, before it could react, the previously dodged attack, as if automatically recognizing the incoming force, passed directly behind Darkrai. With a flash of brilliant blue light, Darkrai's body plummeted in a parabola, crashing once again into the cold ground, leaving a spiderweb of cracks in the ground. It crouched on the ground in agony, its eyes closed and trembling slightly, occasionally emitting a muffled groan as if it had suffered immense damage. Elsewhere, Jengar, seeing Gardevoir's attack, did not hesitate. He resonated with a dark purple orb within his body, unleashing a super ancient power, boosting his strength to that of a mid-level champion. Its massive body resembled a towering mountain, its symbolic patterns gleaming continuously, appearing even more terrifying and menacing under the tranquil moonlight. Cresselia's throat tightened as he stared at Jengar, his expression filled with cautious vigilance, seemingly startled by Gardevoir's sudden attack. A powerful telekinetic energy emanated from its body, and shimmering particles of light vibrated and shimmered around it. It launched a preemptive, intense attack at the ancient Jengar, attempting to drown it in a sea of telekinesis. Powerful psychic power. The ancient Jengar faced the incoming attack without a moment's evasion. With its immense strength, it shattered Cresselia's telekinetic blockade, seizing the opportunity to swiftly advance into the shadows. The next second, the ancient Jengar emerged from behind Cresselia. Cresselia was still frantically searching for Jengar, unaware of the approaching danger. A shadow, shaped into dark, sharp claws, streaked through the air, leaving a long scar on Cresselia's back. It finally woke up, a jolt of consciousness. Under the powerful impact, Cresselia was involuntarily sent flying, slamming hard to the ground not far from Darkrai. Its brow furrowed, and it couldn't help but let out a wail. Its face looked agonized, its body covered in dust and utter disarray, a spectacle lost to the purity and transcendence it had just possessed in its crescent moon form. With that, the battle was over. Ancient Jengar slowly withdrew from its ancient form, and Gardevoir teleported over. The two Pokémon gazed thoughtfully at Darkrai and Cresselia before them. A moment later, Jengar suddenly displayed a strange smile, a fleeting glint in its eyes. It silently approached Cresselia and, as Gardevoir, Cresselia, and Darkrai watched, brazenly plucked out one of its most vibrant feathers. It then casually tossed out several of its treasured energy cubes, instantly leaving Cresselia in disarray. Jengar then shifted his gaze to Darkrai. His peculiar smile gave Darkrai goosebumps, and he shrank back in fear. A minute later, Jengar contentedly pulled a Darkrai's evil gem from him, also leaving behind some energy cubes. This petrified Darkrai, completely despairing of life. The clamor of falling leaves around him seemed to cease, leaving only a deathly silence. Silence was the watermark tonight. Gardevoir's eyelids twitched at the sight, and her expression turned strange. "You're taking such rubbish? They've been badly beaten, and you still have the heart to take advantage of them. Is this how Pokémon become more like their trainers?" Thinking of this, Gardevoir couldn't help but shake her head, quickly shooing away all the distracting thoughts. After a while, the evening breeze grew cooler. After a brief rest, Cresselia and Darkrai finally regained some strength. With complex expressions, they savored the energy cubes hurled by Jengar, a bitter taste etched in their hearts. They exchanged glances, then glanced at the eagerly awaiting Jengar and Gardevoir, their eyes inexplicably etched with a hint of retreat. Soon, under the watchful gaze of Gardevoir and Jengar, Cresselia and Darkrai soared into the sky, leaving Waterborne City and disappearing before them. Before departing, Darkrai spared a moment of Gardevoir's attention, as if to memorize its appearance. He silently vowed to himself that as long as Gardevoir remained, it would never return to Waterborne City again, claiming it was too much of a bully for Pokémon. Gardevoir and Jengar watched the two Pokémon depart, nodded with deep satisfaction, and turned back to the Pokémon Center. At that moment, Feng stood by the windowsill, gazing at the alluring moonlight in the night sky. His eyes grew deep, and he could not tell what he was thinking. Only after Gardevoir and Jengar returned did Feng slowly awaken from his reverie. Just as he was about to return to bed, Jengar suddenly grinned and, from his own shadow, produced a gleaming feather and a dark gem filled with sinister malice. Feng was momentarily stunned. "Feng, what's going on? How could my Jengar and Gardevoir, after just one outing, manage to retrieve a crescent feather and a dark gem for me? Has Pokémon become so introverted these days? Not only do they need to battle, but they also need to learn treasure hunting skills? Has the pressure of competition become so intense?" Feng rubbed his forehead, his face filled with shock and surprise. He glanced at them with a complex expression and whispered encouragement. Then, Feng put Gardevoir and Jengar away, keeping the crescent feather and dark gem close to him to prevent Darkrai and Cresselia from returning and waking him. Chapter 418 Heading to the Galar region. A silent night passed. The next day, sunlight streamed through the windowsill, slanting onto Feng and the others, waking them from their slumber. Feng opened his tightly closed eyes and stretched out in bed, just in time to see Xiaozi and the other two waking up. Each of them had dark circles under their eyes, bags thick under their eyes, and their spirits were utterly drained. Feng knew it was probably the result of the nightmare Darkrai had inflicted the previous night, and he couldn't help but chuckle to himself. He sighed to himself, "Thank goodness I beat up Darkrai and Cresselia, otherwise I'd be in the same boat today, right?" Xiaozi yawned, glanced at Feng with trembling eyes, then greeted Xiagang and Xiaoguang. Seeing the dark circles under their eyes, he seemed to be recalling something terrifying, and asked with a pale face, "Xiagang, Xiaoguang, did you have nightmares yesterday too?" Xiagang and Xiaoguang heard the hidden meaning in Xiaozi's words, and their eyebrows couldn't help but raise. "Ash, are you also?" Ash and Pikachu nodded, their expressions becoming extremely unnatural as they recalled the strange shadow that appeared in their dream last night. Perhaps to confirm something, the three of them shifted their gaze to Feng's face. But seeing Feng's energetic and radiant appearance, they were forced to put aside their suspicions. It was not until they left the Pokémon Center dormitory and saw the passers-by and trainers, all of whom were as tired as the three of them, that they could not help but look at each other in confusion. A moment later, Xiaozi came to the counter and looked at Miss Joy, whose dark circles were no less than his. He couldn't help but ask the puzzlement in his heart, "Miss Joy, what's wrong with everyone? Why do you all look so listless and exhausted?" Upon hearing this, Miss Joy glanced at Xiaozi indifferently. She immediately knew that he was not a trainer from Water City. She sighed silently and explained, "Oh. It's all caused by nightmares. It must be Darkrai who lives near Crescent Island who has appeared again." Darkrai? Ozzy scratched his head, as if he had heard the name for the first time. He asked in a daze, "What kind of Pokemon is this?" After hearing Ozzy's words, Feng slowly came to his side and had Rodham search for a picture of Darkrai. He introduced Darkrai to Ozzy. Darkrai is also known as the Nightmare God. It is a fantasy Pokemon with evil attributes. Due to its inherent nightmare properties, many Darkrai are usually unable to control their own power, causing humans and Pokemon around it to have endless nightmares. In fact, they themselves do not have any malicious intentions. "I see," Ozzy nodded, gazing at the image Rodham had presented, and gently pointed. "So, that eerie black figure I saw in my dream yesterday was Darkrai." Miss Joy, listening to Feng's explanation, gave Ozzy a wry smile. "If everyone's having nightmares, it must be Darkrai's annual appearance again. Darkrai will be active in Water Pulse City these days, which may cause the nightmares to linger for a few days. If you have other things to do in Water Pulse City, they might be delayed." Ozzy's face suddenly stretched, revealing a look of immense worry. After all, he still had gyms to challenge, and a sudden nightmare event would definitely disrupt their plans. "Miss Joy, is there any way to avoid nightmares?" Guang's face was a little sallow, as if she was still troubled by last night's nightmare. "I don't want to keep having dark circles under my eyes. I'm so sleepy." Miss Joy thought for a moment, then noticed Feng's crescent feather and said with envy, "Unless we can obtain Cresselia's crescent feather, we'll just have to hold on for a few days until Darkrai leaves." Crescent feather, and Cresselia. Ash's confusion deepened when he heard Miss Joy utter these two new terms. Brock stepped forward and shared his information with Ash. Cresselia is a legendary Pokemon, known as the God of Dreams, often considered the embodiment of the crescent moon. Its feathers are said to have the power to dispel nightmares. Just then, a sudden commotion erupted outside the Pokemon Center. A crowd surged like a tide, rushing towards the waterborne city docks, instantly attracting the attention of the others. Ash and his companions watched in amazement. Ash quickly approached the Pokemon Center's main entrance and asked a passing trainer, "What's going on? Why are all the people out?" The stranger, without even turning back, said something and continued onward, following the throng. "There's a new shop near the harbor, and they're selling crescent feathers. Everyone's rushing to buy them to avoid nightmares tonight." Brock and Dawn, upon hearing this, were also excited. They couldn't help but suggest, "Ash, why don't we go over and take a look? We don't know when Darkrai will leave, and we can't have nightmares all these days." Ash nodded, quickly joining the crowd with Pikachu, and rushed towards the harbor. Brock and Dawn followed closely behind, quickly catching up with Ash and Pikachu. Feng watched their movements and was about to tell the three of them about Darkrai's departure when he saw Ash and his group disappear. In response to this, he could only shake his head helplessly and followed carefully. 10 minutes later, Feng rushed to the vicinity of the pier and happened to see Ozzy and the other two walking out of the newly opened store, holding the crescent feather tightly in their hands, with a satisfied expression on their faces. He carefully observed the crescent feathers in Ozzy and the others' hands and found that they were fake Pidgeot feathers made of paint. He then looked at the Rocket Trio who were happily collecting money and were poorly disguised, and was suddenly a little surprised. He didn't expect that the Rocket Trio had disbanded, but the real protagonist trio would still follow Ozzy and the others. It can be said that they were true love. Glancing at the Rocket Trio's store and seeing the words Full Moon Island Crescent Feather Specialty Store written on it, Feng's expression became even more strange. He was silent for a while, and couldn't help but complain in his heart. They even dared to use the Full Moon Island trademark. Aren't they afraid of the lawyer's letter posted by the relevant association? Immediately afterwards, Feng sighed and approached the jubilant Ash and his companions. He directly exposed the crescent feather scam and hinted at Darkrai's departure. Ash and his companions remained silent for a moment, then, filled with anger, approached Meowth and the other two, reenacting the much-anticipated scene. Pikachu's 100,000-volt Thunderbolt blasted Kajiro and the others, electrifying them to a crisp. The resulting explosion sent the three protagonists flying through the air. Feng couldn't help but laugh as he watched the true protagonists, who had transformed into meteors and vanished over Water Pulse City. An hour later, after bidding farewell to Ash and his companions, Feng purchased ferry tickets to the Galar region, preparing to travel to Spiketown to complete his World Championship Challenge. Chapter 419, Spike Gym and Morubiko. January 15th. Night faded, dawn broke. The ferry, sailing from the Sinar region, gradually approached southeastern Galar. An hour later, as the sun rose over the sea, its golden rays shone across the narrow coastline. The ferry finally docked at the harbor not far from Spiketown. After the ferry docked, Feng, along with Rotom and 3 other Pokémon, set foot on Galar's shores. Galar, with its vast territory and diverse terrain, is a place rich in unique character. Unlike other regions in the Pokémon world, the darkness caused by the Eternal 3,000 years ago has resulted in Pokémon nests across the vast expanse of the Galar region, allowing Pokémon to achieve Gigantamax. Furthermore, Pokémon battles are highly valued in Galar, with a strong emphasis on competition. Matches between local gym leaders and challengers are often held in numerous arenas, drawing spectators from across the region. Feng and Rotom curiously surveyed the surroundings. Seeing the smiling, enthusiastic Galar people around him, he couldn't help but be infected. After asking a local resident for directions to Spiketown, Feng took out his Rotom bike and leisurely rode it to Spiketown, enjoying the scenery and the many local wild Pokémon along the way. It was 9 o'clock in the morning. After riding for an hour and a half, Feng finally exited Route 9 and arrived at Spiketown, located in the southeastern part of the Galar region. As a town in the southeastern part of the Galar region, Spiketown is far from energy points and cannot be Dynamaxed. As a result, it is considered an outlier among the towns in the Galar region. There is no dedicated arena in the town, and it can be said that the entire town is Spike Gym. Is this Spiketown? Feng carefully surveyed the town before him. The shops scattered about, giving it a slightly punk vibe, made him mutter, "It's not much different from any other town." He continued to wander the town for a while with Rotom and the other Pokémon, searching for Galar region delicacies. As the competition drew near, Feng turned to Rotom and said softly, "Rotom, please help me find the shortest route to the competition venue." Rotom nodded, quickly searching online, and presented Feng with the route he had found. Feng browsed Rotom's directions and walked for a while, finally arriving at the designated location of the Spike Gym. At that moment, the Spike Gym was sparsely populated. Perhaps it was because it was so early, or perhaps because of the lack of Dynamaxing, the gym was quite unpopular. Feng pondered for a moment, then instructed Rotom to notify the World Championship Committee to arrange for a drone Rotom to arrive as soon as possible to prepare for the World Championship. Feng then approached the Spike Gym and explained his purpose to the trainer stationed there. The trainer, with a somewhat sallow complexion, studied Feng for a moment before nodding. He then quickly entered the gym, seemingly to inform Marie and Nizi. A moment later, Nizi, dressed in unconventional attire, and the adorable Marie emerged from the gym and approached Feng. They examined him for a long moment, silently gazing at him. "Are you the challenger this time?" Marie looked at Feng with remarkable composure, her expression impassive, making it difficult to discern any emotion. Feng nodded, his gaze fixed squarely on Marie and Nizi, and replied calmly, "Ms. Marie, I am your opponent for this World Championship." Aerial Rotom, dispatched by the World Championship Organizing Committee, also arrived at the Spike Gym. After confirming Feng and Marie's identities, Aerial Rotom instructed them to prepare for the match. Marie pondered for a moment, glanced up at Nizi, and suddenly made a request to Feng, "Mr. Feng, could you announce this match so that nearby residents can watch?" Feng was silent for several minutes before nodding to Marie. With Feng's approval, Nizi, who had been silent, instructed several members of the gym's shout team to announce the match. Soon, many residents of Spiketown arrived at the gym, awaiting the start of the match. Feng glanced around for a moment, glancing at the seats. Seeing the gym completely packed, he couldn't help but sigh. Galar is truly the region most passionate about Pokémon competitive battles. Meanwhile, Aerial Rotom, seeing everything ready, announced the start of the match to the two. As the sound of the Aerial Rotom landed, the entire Spike Gym erupted in enthusiastic cheers, the entire Galar crowd watching the match erupting in enthusiasm. Marie calmly glanced at Feng and simultaneously released her Pokémon. The next moment, 2 blazing red flashes flashed by. Feng dispatched his overlord, Banjira, while Marie dispatched Morbeck, a Pokémon unique to the Galar region with both electric and dark attributes. Morbeck possesses 2 natural forms. When empty, its sides turn black, while its center and lower body turn purple. Its red pupils and tightly closed teeth often form a waning crescent. When full, Morbek's body exhibits three distinct colors: black on the left side, brown on the right, and yellow in the center and lower body. Its pupils are now black, and its pink cheek pouches continuously generate electricity. Feng glanced at the Morbek before him. Using the power of wave guidance, he could easily gauge its current strength. Feng was somewhat disappointed to find that Molly's strength didn't seem particularly high at the moment. The aura displayed by this Morbek was only at the peak of the gym. Meanwhile, while Feng observed Morbek, Molly was also secretly observing Overlord Bagheera. Sensing its imposing aura, Molly's pupils narrowed slightly, and her expression grew grave. She could sense that the Bagheera before her was not only much larger than a normal Bagheera, but also displayed a strength far beyond her expectations, causing Molly's heart to sink. After a brief moment of contemplation, Molly took a deep breath, regaining her usual expressionless demeanor. She calmly commanded, "Morbek, flash!" Upon hearing this, Morbek charged out with lightning speed, baring its sharp teeth and pouncing on Overlord Bagheera, quickly reaching him. A flash of lightning. As Morbek's attack neared its target, Feng made no move, seemingly intent on observing Morbek's situation through the match. A moment later, Morbek's powerful inertia slammed into Overlord Bagheera's armor, creating a resounding crash. However, due to the disparity in power, despite its utmost effort, it was unable to dislodge Overlord Bagheera. Overlord Bagheera observed the small creature before him with fascination, snorting heavily before gently lifting his right foot and stomping on the ground, sending the petite Morbek shattering into pieces. Mary, observing this, fell even more silent. After quick reflection, she addressed Morbek, "Morbek, run around Bagheera and look for opportunities to use the seed machine gun." Morbek nodded, stabilizing his position and running back and forth around the gap beneath Overlord Bagheera's feet. Taking advantage of Overlord Bagheera's inattention, it violently unleashed countless emerald green seeds from its mouth, striking areas not covered by Overlord Bagheera's armor. A faint trace of pain crossed Overlord Bagheera's face. Mary noticed the change in his expression and quickly instructed Morbek to continue attacking with his seed machine gun ability. Nizi, standing nearby, shook his head and sighed, seemingly unconvinced by her instructions. As expected, Feng, withdrawing his gaze from Morbek, addressed Overlord Bagheera directly. "Earthquake!" Instantly, roar! Overlord Bagheera roared, stomping the ground with all his might. Using ground energy, he unleashed a powerful shockwave that struck Morbek, who was not far away. Earthquake! The powerful earthquake shook Spike Town slightly, sending billowing clouds of smoke and dust billowing into the air and scattering fine gravel and sand. Since Morbek was not too far from Overlord Bagheera at the time, he was directly struck by the full force of the earthquake shockwave. After a few breaths, a pained expression appeared on his face, and he fainted at Overlord Bagheera's feet. Countless spectators witnessed this scene and cheered for Overlord Bagheera's display of strength, causing the entire Spike Gym to erupt in a long roar. Chapter 420 Super Ball Level 923. In the audience, someone pointed at Bagheera with excitement, waving a small flag in their hand, and excitedly said to their friends, "This Bagheera is so powerful, and Bagheera's trainer is also very calm." The faint smile of confidence on his face reminds me of Dante when he first debuted. Another audience member chimed in, "Perhaps we will witness the rise of a trainer as great as Dante." The others mostly nodded silently at their conversation. Even a few who disagreed didn't say much, only muttering quietly. On the battlefield, Marie looked at the unconscious Morbek. Her face, so calm that it showed no emotion, suddenly showed a hint of helplessness. She immediately took out the Pokeball and put it back. Then, at the prompting of Ariel Rodham, Marie released her second Pokémon, Groove. The shaggy troll's exterior is covered in long fur. Its body is incredibly muscular, with incredibly well-developed muscles, pointed ears and nose, and relatively long teeth. The luxuriant hair on the shaggy troll's head gives it the appearance of flowing hair. As a Pokémon with dark plus fairy attributes, the shaggy troll not only possesses a strength that can overwhelm even the strongest, but also allows its hair to function like muscle fibers, wrapping around its opponent like tentacles when extended. Feng studied the shaggy troll intently, sensing a sense of imminent aura, indicating that the shaggy troll before him was approaching the level of a celestial king. He paused for a moment, then glanced at Overlord Bagheera and suddenly declared, "Break the tiles, roar!" Overlord Bagheera roared with a domineering rage, sprinting towards the shaggy troll's position with heavy strides, shaking the entire battlefield with a terrifying roar. As Overlord Bagheera approached the hairy troll, it suddenly raised its massive right arm, transforming it into a blazing white knife, and slashed down fiercely. "Break the tile!" Mary's brow furrowed at the sight, and she immediately shouted to the hairy troll, "Hairy troll, soul shock!" The hairy troll nodded slightly, glanced cautiously at Overlord Bagheera, trying to track its movements. Then, a pink glow of power erupted, and a powerful aura poured out towards Overlord Bagheera. "Soul shock!" A crashing roar echoed. Leveraging the muscle fibers of its hair and its own immense strength, the hairy troll barely withstood Overlord Bagheera's immense force, its eyes fierce and unleashing a ferocious aura. Overlord Bagheera was unable to dodge and was directly struck by the hairy troll's soul shock. The fairy-type move dealt quadruple damage, causing it to groan, its face slightly pained. Feeling the pain radiating from within, Overlord Bagheera went berserk. A fierce glint flashed in its eyes. Using its immense strength, it pressed down upon the hairy troll, firing a powerful, terrifying ray of light at close range, striking it instantly. A ray of destruction. The hairy troll had no escape, relying solely on its stance to withstand the devastating ray of destruction. The intense pain washed over it, and it let out a cry of grief that echoed throughout the spike gym. The spectators, unable to bear the sight, turned their heads away, but the pungent smell of burning hair was still tangible, causing everyone to swallow. Mary's cold eyes flickered, a look of anxiety crossing her calm face. She couldn't help but call out to the hairy troll, "Hairy troll, are you alright?" The hairy troll's body trembled slightly. And taking advantage of Overlord Bagheera's moment of stiffness, it broke free from its immense restraints. It dragged its wounded body to a corner, its breath weakening, as if even a single blow could bring it down. Mary gritted her teeth, clenched her fists, and stared at Overlord Bagheera, still frozen in place. She quickly commanded the hairy troll, "Hairy troll, draining kiss." The hairy troll raised its head with difficulty, its body brimming with pink fairy energy. Despite the pain from the intense light burning its body, it cast draining kiss. Feng glanced at Overlord Bagheera and saw its body trembling. He knew the stiffness was about to wear off, and said indifferently, "The final earthquake." Instantly, the hairy troll's draining kiss struck Overlord Bagheera, draining its strength to restore itself. However, Overlord Bagheera had also recovered from the stiffness and stomped the ground with all its might, unleashing a terrifying earthquake. As the shockwave spread, the hairy troll had nowhere to hide and was instantly struck in the vitals. Its pupils constricted slightly, and it collapsed to the ground, losing its last remaining fighting ability. At that moment, the spectators watched the results of the match, their enthusiasm rising even higher. They couldn't help but cheer loudly, their earth-shaking roars echoing throughout the spike gym. Marie was stunned for several minutes, then, staring at the battered hairy troll, she suddenly realized what was happening and quickly retrieved her Pokéball to retract it. Meanwhile, Ariel Rodham filmed the entire match and uploaded the final results to the official World Championship website, announcing Feng's victory. As soon as the sound of the aerial shot of Rodham fell, Feng's World Championship points began to skyrocket, quickly surpassing Hoenn, the top-ranked Pokéball, and directly entering the 923rd place in the Ultra Ball class. At this moment, Molly and Nizi Lianju approached Feng. Nizi looked at him admiringly and said with interest, "A wonderful match. Your battle command was impeccable. I can sense that your strength is far greater than this. Would you mind a duel with me?" Nizi said, looking at Feng expectantly, eager to hear his response. Hearing Nizi's words, Feng subconsciously glanced at Molly, thinking she was trying to stand up for her sister. But after a long look, he realized that Nizi had no such intentions, likely just being tempted by the prospect, and shook his head, politely declining the challenge. "Gym leader Nizi, there are plenty of opportunities for us to battle. Once I reach the advanced ball level, I'll definitely challenge you. Please don't refuse then." Nizi was stunned for a moment, then a smile broke across his face, muttering to himself, "Interesting." Mary gritted her teeth and remained silent for a moment. She suddenly raised her head, looked directly at Feng, and said with a hint of defiance, "Next time, I will defeat you." Feng smiled but said nothing. After a brief exchange with Nizi and adding their contact information, he left the Spike Gym and headed out of Spike Town. After leaving Spike Town, Feng compared his current location and had Rodham find a route to the Crown Tundra, intending to go there to search for the Dynamax energy point. After all, it would be a shame to visit the Galar region without experiencing Dynamaxing. although Lu Feng still preferred Mega Evolution. That didn't stop him from trying out the effects of Dynamaxing. Furthermore, a Galar-formed Moltres roamed the Crown Tundra. Charizard, having received a ray of frigid flame from Kyurem and, with the help of Imrito, upgraded its own flame to Flame of Will, had reached mid-quasi-champion status. While Charizard's strength was still slowly improving thanks to the Fireball Slate, Lu Feng was confident that if he could obtain the Galar-formed Moltres feathers, it would soon break through to champion status, becoming his 5th champion Pokémon. Upon receiving Lu Feng's instructions, Rotom immediately searched for the relevant route and, controlling the Rotom bike, led Lu Feng straight ahead. Chapter 421, Ultra Giant Warm Embrace. January 18th, Saturday. The sky was overcast, snowflakes falling, accompanied by a howling wind, making the chill almost painful. After 3 days of travel, Lu Feng, riding his Rotom bike, accompanied by Melota and Victini, arrived at Woodland Town, the starting point of the Galar region journey. He first visited the boutiques in Woodland Town and purchased a suitable outfit. Then, he went to Woodland Town Station, purchased a ticket to the Crown Tread Station, and leisurely boarded the Galar region train. Due to the weather, Victini had curled up into a small ball, nestled in Lu Feng's coat, devoid of her usual energy. Melota had also retreated into her ancient Pokeball, refusing to emerge. Lu Feng shook his head helplessly, enjoying a bit of leisure. Lu Feng quietly waited for the train to depart, his eyes gazing towards the Crown Treads with anticipation. The Crown Tundra, located in the southern part of the Galar region, is not only rich in Dynamax energy nests but also home to numerous powerful wild Pokémon, including legendary Pokémon. The Galar Trinity have been sighted within the Crown Tundra, and there are also rumors that the King of Plenty resides there, often patrolling his territory atop his beloved steed. However, regardless of these rumors, the Crown Tundra is a dangerous wilderness, with numerous trainers tragically lost every year. Furthermore, the Galar League's current exploration of the Crown Tundra has only completed preliminary exploration, leaving the vast expanse still largely unexplored. It's fair to say that the Crown Tundra is to Galar what the Silver Mountains are to Kanto and Johto, and what the Crown Mountains are to Sinnoh. Its dangers are self-evident. Around 9:30 a.m., the train from Mugentown to the Crown Snowfields began to depart, speeding out of the Mugentown station at a rapid speed. Lu Feng subconsciously peered out the window beside him, but his vision was blurry, completely obscured. Time ticked by. Just as Lu Feng dozed off in his seat, the train suddenly slowed down, and the scene outside the window gradually became clearer, jolting him awake. A moment later, the train slowly stopped at the station on the Chale Snowfields. Lu Feng packed his bags, cradling the huddled Victini in his arms, and walked out of the station with Rotom. Looking around for a moment, they were met with a vast expanse of white, a scene reminiscent of a snowy land, unfolding before their eyes. With Rotom's guidance, Lu Feng quickly found the marked energy nodes near the Chale Snowfields. There were 6 energy nodes around the Chale Snowfields, corresponding to Pokémon nests of different attributes: grass, rock, ice, normal, ghost, and ice. Lu Feng pondered for a moment, then said without hesitation, "Let's go check out the normal-type Pokémon nests first." He preferred normal-type energy nodes over other energy nodes. After all, it gave Eevee more combat options, and he was eager to see what a Gigantamaxed Eevee would look like. Rotom nodded, found the nearest normal-type Pokémon nest, and led Lu Feng there. Soon, Lu Feng and his group arrived at a normal-type Pokémon nest on the snowy plains. Within this Pokémon nest, a few wishing stars could be vaguely seen, emitting faint lavender beams. A small amount of energy flowed, attracting numerous wild Pokémon. As if sensing the unusual noise, many wild Pokémon fled from their nests, glaring at Lu Feng with unfriendly expressions, as if preparing to attack. One Shaggyhorn in particular had an incredibly sharp gaze, completely lacking the gentleness of a typical Shaggyhorn. An aura of fury and rage permeated the air as it charged directly towards Lu Feng. Lu Feng frowned slightly at the volatile Shaggyhorn, then unleashed his Eevee, using Lightning Flash to retaliate. A heavy boom echoed as Eevee and Shaggyhorn collided violently, sending both Pokémon flying backwards. Eevee rolled over to right itself, landing firmly on the ground with all fours, creating a trail of dust that forced Lu Feng to cover his mouth and nose with his hands. Elsewhere, Shaggyhorn, weighed down by its weight, had no time to adjust itself and inevitably collided with a wishing star block. The Dynamax energy instantly emanated from it, causing its body to undergo a dramatic transformation, instantly transforming into Dynamax form. It leaned forward, searching for Eevee, its expression becoming fierce and ferocious, as if it had lost control. Seeing this, the other wild Pokémon fled the Pokémon nest in panic, leaving in a state of panic. Feng silently stepped back a distance, gazing up at the Gigantamaxed Shaggyhorn before him. He sensed the Dynamax energy distorting the space around him, then suddenly glanced at Eevee. He pulled out the Gigantamax band he had acquired long ago, absorbing the Dynamax energy coursing through the surrounding area. Instantly activating it, he used the advanced ball to retrieve Eevee and instantly Dynamaxed. The next moment, Eevee reappeared. Under the influence of the surrounding Dynamax energy, space began to distort, transforming Eevee into Gigantamaxed form, roughly the same height as Shaggyhorn. Gazing at the Gigantamaxed Eevee, its lush, cream-colored fur and a strange purple-red mist swirling around its right ear, Feng's eyes were filled with shock, and he was slightly dazed. A moment later, he was silent. Feng gradually regained consciousness and shouted directly to Gigantamax, "Gigantamax warm hug." Gigantamax nodded, radiating a strange energy, a state that captivated Pokémons. Although Gigantamax had no gender distinction, even Gigantamax felt a Gigantamax warm hug and froze in place, mesmerized. Meanwhile, Feng continued to command Gigantamax, unleashing a Gigantamax slam, sending Gigantamax flying. Slamming hard onto the ground not far away, a cloud of dust and smoke rose up. Seeing that Gigantamax hadn't reacted, Gigantamax continued its attack. A few minutes later, as the Gigantamax energy faded, the unconscious Gigantamax immediately exited its Gigantamax form and collapsed to the ground. Seeing this, Feng immediately deactivated the Eevee's Gigantamax mode, returning it to its advanced ball. He gazed at the nearby Shaggyhorn for a moment, then walked directly over to it and used the power of Evergreen to heal its wounds. Soon after, the Shaggyhorn recovered. Feng gave it a cold glance and left without a word. They tracked a location where Galar Moltres had appeared, wandering through the Crown Tundra. Starting from Frozen Village, they passed through the Frozen Point snowfield, the Giant's Bed, and the Ancient Cemetery, finally encountering Galar Moltres near the Snow Valley. Unlike ordinary Moltres, Galar Moltres has black feathers on its back and red feathers on its abdomen. Its tail is a flame-like pattern of interlaced black and red. Its crown and wings are black at the front and red at the back, and its beak is red and curved. Observing it from afar, it exudes a sense of awe and fear, which is also related to Galar Moltres' dark plus flying attributes. After considerable effort, Feng, through a friendly exchange with Galar Moltres, finally obtained a black flame tail feather emitting an evil aura from it, which he then gave to Charizard to absorb. After Galar Moltres surrendered the tail feather, Feng inquired about its intentions. Upon learning that it did not wish to leave the Crown Tundra, Feng did not pursue it further, simply watching it depart with a touch of regret. After all, for Feng, a Galar Moltres, a mere legendary Pokémon, was not a crucial Pokémon. Feng then returned along the same path he had taken, and had just reached the Ancient Cemetery when he saw a ghostly figure, its roars fierce and resonant as a dragon's. Feng paused in his tracks, a look of surprise on his face. Chapter 422, Doran Gerudo. Soon after, Feng followed the sound. He saw scattered rubble all around him, jagged rocks scattered across the rolling ground. Due to the placement of the rocks, sunlight was blocked from reaching them, making the surrounding light very dim. Not far from the pile of rocks, there was a patch of black soil, covered with fragments of some black crop. Numerous tooth marks were left on the soil, suggesting a Pokémon had once roamed there. Turning and turning, Feng gradually approached the source of the sound. After passing a crumbling red brick wall, he saw a strangely shaped Pokémon, hovering in the air like a ghost, silently hunting from a dark corner. The Pokémon had a triangular head, with 4 spit-like holes in the corners extending to the sides. Its tail gradually became transparent, making its shape indistinct. Its voice had the aggressive, dragon-type quality of a Pokémon. Furthermore, within the Pokémon's 4 launch-like holes, several tiny Pokémon were nestling. Judging from their appearance, they were likely the Pokémon's juvenile forms. Feng gazed at the Pokémon before him and couldn't help but use his detect skill to investigate, quickly acquiring all its information: name, Dragon Gerudo, gender, indifferent, type, dragon plus ghost, ability, pierce, can attack through the opponent's barriers or stands, classification, invisible Pokémon, Strength, mid-quasi champion. Quality, champion. Skills, Dragon Arrow, Dragon Breath, Malice, Lightning Flash, Double Trouble. Startle, Rush, Dragon Dance, Lock On, Lurking Assault, Self-Sacrificing Charge, Treasure, Dragon Dive, Destructive Beam, Massive Destruction, Psychic Fang, Reverse Scale, Immobilize. Is this the Galar region's quasi-god, Dragon Baruto? Lu Feng touched his nose, his eyes gleaming as he pondered silently. At the same time, the previously quiet Dragon Baruto suddenly seemed to notice something and became restless. A cold gleam flashed in its eyes. It aimed directly at the red brick wall and unleashed 4 Dormesius from the launchers on its head. Like streaking arrows, the 4 Dormesius quickly reached Lu Feng and launched a harassing attack, leaving him somewhat distraught. Dragon Arrows. Fortunately, he reacted quickly, first hurling a wave of missiles to deflect the Dormesia's attacks, then quickly unleashing Charizard, which belched a scorching flame directly at the 4 Dormesius. The flames were tinged with black and ominous, like the aura of disaster, instantly inflicting considerable damage to the 4 Dormesius. They retreated behind the red brick wall, their faces weakened. Dragon Baruto, upon seeing this, roared furiously. His body transformed into a ghostly form, flitting directly in front of Dormesia, his eyes filled with a furious roar. Charizard roared back, its voice shaking the heavens and earth, confronting Dragon Valley. Dragon Valley sensed a presence far superior to that of ordinary Pokémon in Charizard's roar. Its pupils constricted slightly, its demeanor shifted, and it fell silent. At this moment, Lu Feng slowly approached Charizard. Dragon Valley, upon noticing Lu Feng's presence, continued to growl, its voice concealing a hint of ferocity. It seemed to be warning Lu Feng to leave the area as soon as possible. Lu Feng glanced at the field behind Dragon Valley, particularly the giant black radish growing there, and a moment of reflection fell upon him. Is this Dragon Valley here to protect the black radish behind it? Lu Feng pondered, as if a sudden realization dawned on him. According to Lu Feng's information, the Galar region eats black radish, and the only Pokémon that inhabits the Crown Tundra seems to be the legendary Pokémon, Phantom. He pondered silently for a moment, then suddenly looked up at Duolong Baruto and asked softly, Duolong Baruto, are you staying here to help the spirit horse protect the food? Duolong Baruto, upon hearing Lu Feng's words, instantly became furious and enraged. Especially noticing that Lu Feng's gaze remained fixed on the fields behind him, it suddenly charged at him, unleashing a terrifying, murderous aura to intimidate him. Dragon Dive. Seeing Duolong Baruto's expression, Lu Feng knew his suspicions were correct. His eyes flickered, as if he were pondering something. The Charizard's eyes shone with a cold glint, and the multicolored flames burning from its tail surged violently, covering its entire body. It flew directly towards Duolong Baruto, engaging him head-on. Flame Charge. In an instant. With a resounding boom, Charizard and Dragonite collided. After a brief pause, both bodies were involuntarily thrown backwards, slamming hard into the ground. Roar, Charizard cried out in pain. Not only had it suffered damage from Dragon Dive, but it was also suffering from the after effects of Flare Charge. Dragonite wasn't in good shape either. The aura of various legendary Pokémon mingled with Charizard's flames had not only inflicted significant damage, but had also inevitably triggered the burning state, causing significant damage. Lu Feng stared at the struggling Dragonite, his face filled with surprise and astonishment, as if somewhat surprised by its strength and physical conditioning. Charizard, at this point, was not only near champion level, but also possessed a wisp of the power of other legendary Pokémon, giving it a combined strength and damage far exceeding its normal level. A typical Pokémon would typically be reduced to low health after sustaining a devastating blow from Charizard, but this Dragonite remained vibrant, prompting Lu Feng to consider capturing it. After a few moments of deliberation, Lu Feng extended the Mega Evolution bracelet on his right hand and, using the power of the Wave Guide, shifted the Mega Evolution stone on it. He spoke in a deep voice, Charizard, Mega Evolution. Instantly, a rainbow of light shone through the pitch-black ancient cemetery. As Dragonite was stunned, Charizard transformed into Mega Charizard X, its power and aura skyrocketing, instantly reaching the threshold between near champion and champion. The next moment, Mega Charizard X flapped its black wings and charged forward at swift speed, its claws ablaze with brilliant white light. It quickly appeared near Dragonite and slashed down with its sharp claws. Dragon Claw. With the added power of its hardened claws, The Dragon Claw's power intensified. Baruto's pupils constricted, and just as it was about to resist, a flash of white light flashed before its eyes, and its body abruptly stopped. A few seconds later, its body involuntarily fell to the ground, its body burning. Feng seized this opportunity to throw his advanced ball, striking Baruto's head. A blazing red light flashed, and only one advanced ball remained on the ground. With a ding, the trembling advanced ball returned to calm. Feng, a faint smile on his face, walked over to it, and leaned over to pick it up. As for the remaining Dormesia, Feng also took out his Ultra Balls one by one, collected them, and teleported them directly back to the Hirayama gym, intending to keep them there as rewards or as parent stock for breeding. Chapter 423, Spirit Horse and Crown Temple. Half an hour later. After Feng sent the two Daling Messiahs back to the Hirayama gym, he gently pressed the button on the advanced ball and released Baruto directly. After the remaining two Daling Messiahs were released, they panicked and shrank into the launch hole on the corner of Baruto, staring at Feng nervously. Feng looked at Baruto, who had not yet woken up. He first took out the burn medicine from his backpack and gently sprayed it on the surface of Baruto's body to treat its burns, and then used the power of Evergreen to treat it. About 10 minutes later, the injuries on the surface of Baruto's body gradually recovered, and it also woke up from its coma. Looking at Feng with a calm look, Baruto showed an extremely complicated expression. After sighing silently, it accepted the fact that it had been subdued by Feng. Immediately afterwards, Feng pointed to the black radishes not far away, as well as the food scraps and tooth marks in the field ahead. He couldn't help but ask Baruto, I think the black radishes here are what the spirit horse asked you to look after, right? Baruto was silent for a long time, then nodded silently, his eyes filled with nostalgia and relief. Seeing Baruto nod, Feng's eyes darkened, a faint glimmer. A moment later, Feng continued to talk with Baruto and finally understood the reason for his excellent physical fitness. It turned out that he had received some guidance and help from Baruto while helping the spirit horse guard the food. Feng also learned that the spirit horse usually returned to this place to feed in the evening. He checked his watch and saw that it was already past 3 in the afternoon. It shouldn't be long before the spirit horse reappeared. Other thoughts suddenly occurred to him. So, Feng walked directly to a nearby boulder and sat there patiently, waiting for the spirit horse to appear. Time passed, and dusk fell in the blink of an eye. Just as Feng was growing impatient, he heard the clear neighing of a distant horse. The clatter of its galloping gallop shook the ground slightly, and the heavy thud of hooves grew closer. Feng instinctively looked in the direction of the sound and saw a divine horse, pitch black, its fur on its head like long, draped purple hair, its tail drooping with lavender mane, and a shimmering mist at its feet. It caught his eye. This was a ghostly legendary Pokémon, one of the beloved steeds of the King of Plenty, Ragnarok. The horse snorted, as if summoning Dragon Velato. But when Dragon Velato didn't appear as promised, the horse sniffed hard and detected the lingering scent of battle in the air. In an instant, a glimmer of understanding flashed in its eyes, and with a look of wariness on its face, it cautiously approached the deeper fields. Upon discovering its black radish was intact, it breathed a sigh of relief. The spirit horse took tentative steps forward, scanning its surroundings, its peripheral vision constantly scanning for potential danger. Soon, it reached a field planted with black radishes. But before it could begin to eat, it heard the rustling of footsteps behind it, instantly catching its attention. The spirit horse let out a hoarse neigh. Seeing Feng emerge, it silently observed him for a long moment. Sensing the rich aura of legend emanating from him, particularly that associated with the Bud Crown King, it couldn't help but let out a soft whimper. Then, the spirit horse grabbed the black radish in front of it, transformed into a beam of light, and rushed in a certain direction. Feng, stunned by this scene, curled his lip, then rode Charizard in pursuit. After regaining consciousness, he remembered the relevant information and didn't show much surprise or confusion at the Phantom's actions. Phantom is a legendary Pokémon that prefers solitude and quiet. Unless it encounters an enemy that invades its territory or disturbs its tranquility, it typically won't attack passing trainers or Pokémon. Feng, perched on Charizard's back, looked down from above, searching for Phantom's traces. He soon spotted its shadow just north of the ancient cemetery. Feng didn't let Charizard approach directly, but instead maintained a relative pace, closely following Phantom's direction, attempting to find the legendary Crown Temple. An indeterminate amount of time passed before Lu Feng, and a vast, boundless icy snowy path appeared before him. Ancient stone steps, stacked one after another, were covered in frost and snow, resembling ancient, unknown ruins. Phantom flashed by the path, obscured by the vast expanse of ice and snow, and vanished from Lu Feng's side in an instant. Lu Feng simply shook his head and immediately landed Charizard on the stairs. Judging from the buildings, already eroded and mottled by the snow and the erosion of time, this place didn't resemble a contemporary human style, but rather one from a much more distant past. This was within the Crown Snowfields, a region untouched by humanity. The Crown Temple should be around here, he muttered, taking in the old guardrails and weathered stone pillars, and the ancient bluestone bricks buried beneath the falling snow. He paused briefly before continuing up the stairs, Charizard and Rotom following closely behind, climbing to the top together. A white mist drifted through the air, silently falling from the sky and lingering over the mountain, lending the snow-capped peak an air of coldness and mystery. The group trudged up the icy snowy path, advancing several hundred meters. They soon reached the halfway point, but before Lu Feng could gain a firm foothold, massive icicles suddenly descended from the mountainside. He watched as these chilling icicles threatened to smash into Lu Feng, piercing him with holes. Lu Feng's brow furrowed, then gradually relaxed. Without even looking up, he addressed the Charizard behind him. Explode! Immediately, a blazing flame shot out from behind him in the shape of a letter X. Just at the last moment, it collided with a massive icicle, erupting with a violent crashing roar. The terrifying heat rapidly melted the icicle. In just a few breaths, the massive icicle melted into water, which dripped onto the ground and soon transformed back into a cold mass of ice. Lu Feng glanced ahead and, as if dazed, saw a white shadow flash by. After a brief moment of reflection, a slight smile rose from his lips. It seems I've passed the mountaineering test, Lu Feng thought to himself. Sure enough, during the rest of the ascent, Lu Feng encountered no other special circumstances and reached the summit without much effort. The first thing he saw was a vast palace buried beneath ice and snow. The decorations and carvings on the palace's walls revealed that this ancient palace must have once belonged to an incredibly prosperous and powerful kingdom. Crown Temple, Lu Feng gazed at the ancient building, sighing softly. As expected, it's the palace of a king. Even now buried in ice and snow, it's still so stunning. The Crown Temple was once the heart of the land of plenty. Legend has it that the Pokémon, Crimson Crown, once resided here and ruled over the vast Galar region. Back then, Crimson Crown, riding his beloved Phantom and Blizzard, emerged from the Crown Temple and galloped across the vast land of Galar. It's said that the Budream King possesses a special ability to draw strength from faith. Whenever he raises his right hand, flowers bloom and grass grows green. When he raises his left hand, crops harvest and fields become fertile. Thanks to the Budream King, the Galar region was once lush and vibrant, a land of immense abundance. But alas, even the most powerful and prosperous kingdoms eventually decay and fall. Submerged by the ice and snow, the once prosperous kingdom lost its former glory, its entirety annihilated beneath the ice and snow. Lu Feng couldn't help but sigh with regret at the thought. Then, with a click, the ancient Crown Temple's doors swung open. Amidst a cloud of snow dust, a massive figure emerged, slowly approaching Lu Feng with a clatter of heavy horse hooves. Before Lu Feng could even raise his head, he heard a commanding voice. Humans who have trespassed into my territory, state your intentions. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.